Hello, everyone, and welcome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Homelessness and Poverty Committee. We have a really large turnout today, and so we have an overflow room as well. Everyone who fills out a comment card, either electronically or on paper, if you're in the other room, you will get heard today, so thank you for your attendance. And I'd like to acknowledge that we have quorum, and we're joined by Marquise Harris-Dawson and Mike Bonin. We are expected to also be joined by Monica Rodriguez and David Rue. So, colleagues, what I'd like to do is take multiple item comments first. No general public comment, just multiple comment card speakers. And that means if you're speaking on more than one item, you get a total of 2 minutes to speak on all the items. We'll do general public comment later because we have to structure this meeting in such a way to accommodate everyone that we possibly can and hear the items while we have quorum, because not everyone can stay the whole time. It's going to be a long meeting, so let's prepare for that. And with that, we'll start with those multiple items, starting with Antonio Ramirez. And you filled out all items, so you have 2 minutes for those items, and that'll be followed by Andrea Murray, followed by Armando Herman. If you would all like to step forward and take a seat, that way we'll be able to do this more expeditiously. If Andrea Murray and Armando Herman and Corey Schmidt could step forward and take a seat. And we'll go ahead and start with Antonio Ramirez. Go ahead and start.
Thank you. I'd like to start with number 2. The HHH committee has squandered all our money. And number 3, we want to save clean, vibrant, secure, with reasonable privacy, freedom friendly, but no junkies, no gangbangers, no wetbacks, no nosy, jealous, gang stalking neighbors who are loud and toxic. Put the junkies in rehab, put the pedophiles, pimps, and thieves and all violent offenders in prison or jail, put the mental in a psych ward, and deport all the wetbacks and gangbangers, and house lawfully those who are legal law-abiding citizens, including our beloved United States military veterans. And number 4, Dr. Drew, who knows nothing about the homelessness and crimes against women, he declares everyone on the street as mentally ill. Dr. Drew, you fuckhead, ever heard of gang stalking, harassment, retaliation? I'm homeless by design. Furthermore, I am retaliated because I fight for the rule of law, to enforce the fucking rule of law. So I made many enemies, and I know I'm not crazy, but it takes bloody balls to sleep on the streets while you're being urinated, attacked, and beaten and robbed. It takes balls, and you ain't got none. Number 6, shut LASA down, for they are a dismal failure, especially the crew that passes by in La Placita Alvera Street. They are dismissive, callous, and inefficient. Shut them down, because they truly have failed the homeless, and we're not all mental. And number 7, I don't know about the New York program yet. I don't even have a cell phone, because I got robbed by the fucking niggers, gangbangers, and wetbacks. So I don't have a fucking cell phone, so I have to flag the cops down. But I would love to live in a place that it would be safe and secure and protected, free from danger, free from niggers and gangbangers and wetbacks, man. That's what I want. Okay? Number 8, Earl Weston has threatened to take away the tennis courts, and he is now putting trailer...
all right, thank you. Thank you.
Help
all right,
because
Armando Herman,
Armando
Herman and Corey Schmidt and Matt Fisher. Armando Herman doesn't appear to be here. Corey Schmidt, Matt Fisher. And Wayne Spindler, if you could step forward too. And we've been joined by Monica Rodriguez and David Rue. All right, Mr. Schmidt, 2 minutes.
Okay, I want to just talk for a second about some possibilities here. So, number 5, in terms of clearing criminal records. And number 7, in terms of giving cash assistance and supporting everything. I just want to say, I want to get my criminal buddies in here, get them to live on the street, and then have you guys all pay for it. So, just wanted to bring that up just as a potential pitfall for this. But to get more serious now, I I'm not sure about number 1 in regards to Santa Monica Boulevard. I looked over there. It's might be a little big for the area, but I am supportive of the supportive housing. In terms of clearing criminal records and the cash assistance and help, I am supportive of that. I just want to point out the potential pitfalls of it. Shelter bed tracking and number 6 sounds like a good idea. That way we can kind of have a on-demand view of how our shelters are doing as to where we can place people. Let's see. And then 8 through 11, I also am very supportive of. You know, I want to get some bridge housing. I want to get shared housing sounds like a good idea. If we can open up houses, you know, to rent bedrooms, kind of like the Airbnb thing, but if we more of a couch surfing thing, that sounds like a good idea. But yeah, just overall, I think that everything's doing pretty good, but just want to point out some pitfalls that could happen.
Thank you. Matt Fisher, followed by Wayne Spindler, followed by Claudia Brick.
My name is Matt Fisher. I'm a member of the Venice Neighborhood Council, but I'm here representing myself today. I would like to encourage you guys to give all this money up to these people, especially these bridge houses. We can keep the concentration camps away with these bridge houses. This shared housing thing is great. We need more of this. We need you guys to lighten up on the laws so people can actually do this themselves. We have a lot of people in Venice right now that want to do this. So I'm just here to encourage that. And Mr. Bonan's motion, we need this as well. You know, the assistance. It's great. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Wayne Spindler, followed by Claudia Brick, followed by David Bush.
Yeah, very good. Now we get to number 8. Herb Wesson, the bloodsucker, number 8. Now that fool over there, he taking away the only motherfucking tennis courts in the whole 10th district. And the reason why is Herb Wesson take away tennis courts from kids is because the Herb Wesson was afraid of all the Korean motherfuckers on Hoover Street. He was going to take away their parking, but the rich motherfucker chased his ass all the way to the edge of the 10th district to take away tennis courts. 2 tennis courts away. The only motherfuckers in 9 fucking miles. They're going to take it away and put a bunch of campers there, a bunch of trailer shit for temporary bridge. Why temporary? Why not permanent housing? Why are we doing this temporary shit? Temporary my ass, so no on that. Also, I don't know where in the agenda it says the big thing in today's LA Times involving the 12th district and that motherfucking Republican John Lee. And you know what you blood-sucking niggas are going to do here today? You're going to kill an affordable housing homeless project in the 12th district, all because you want that sleazy Asian Republican Trump-voting nigga John Lee to get reelected. That blood-sucking motherfucker is not going to let a project be built. Not a single housing project on HHH in the 12th district has been built, and you motherfuckers are hiding it from me. But I got my glasses, I got my passes, and I say no. I want it built. Build that fucking thing over there in the 12th district and let those white motherfuckers see poverty in action. Yes, sir. Fuck you.
I'm sorry that everyone has to hear this racist, foul language that is so offensive, but that's the First Amendment, and we hear it in every committee hearing and every day at Los Angeles City Hall, and now you get to share in it with us. So we have Claudia Brick, followed by David Bush, followed by Jay Perriott.
Good afternoon, committee members. I represent End Homelessness Now LA. On items 1 and 2, I think it's lovely that you want to get these projects going. However, we believe that all you're doing is providing a low-interest loan for developers, and that this housing should be made public housing, and so that the public money stays in the public and does not revert to private developers when the covenants are over. On item number 5, Yes, clear the damn criminal records. These guys, they're never going to get housing if they have to admit to convictions on applications for housing. Number 6, LASA, already shown to be completely useless. If you give them more money, they'll set up something technological that will break and that they won't use properly, and they'll waste more money. Number 7, yes, if anybody else has any good ideas like Chicago or New York, please review them. Use whatever is useful in them. Get things going here. Number 8, yes, go ahead. But again, this stuff should never, we're wasting valuable property and money on temporary housing when it should all be going to permanent housing. And again, it should be going to permanent public housing. Same with number 9. Number 10, shared housing. I've heard their presentation. Excellent ideas. Please don't let good suggestions go by. Revisit some of the modular suggestions that have come forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. David Bush, followed by Jay Perriott, followed by Peggy Lee Kennedy.
Good afternoon, council people. My name is David Bush. I'm a homeless person. I've been homeless for 20 years. I sleep on the sidewalk in Venice. I'm not homeless by choice. It's a dilemma. Nobody chooses to be homeless. But when you're faced with the shortage of shelter beds in the city, and you're a single man, and you see women and children and people who've never had the educational opportunities that a person like myself had, or the privilege of once being a union worker, you say, let's get those people a bed first. I'm here today because we are obviously at a turning point. We're considering ordinances here at the city council and at the county. They're considering striking down Eighth Amendment protections and handing them to a Trump court to decide. It's just disastrous. And I'm concerned that one of the things that we aren't considering is what I would call the Oakland model. Up in Oakland, they have not the funds to open, and the same blockages to opening up shelters that we're facing. They have the same problems with the permanent supportive housing and transitional housing. And what they're doing is they're saying we've got to give these people who are in their vehicles parking lots to park in. We've got to give these people in tents some toilets, some security in some sites with attendants where we can lessen the crime, some places where we can say to the 27,000 on the street unhoused in this city, here's a place where you can go, so you don't have to be in front of a business or somebody's residence. And we've seen these proposals, Santa Barbara, 4 or 5 years ago. In Venice, we were trying to bring that down here to LA. And we think that this is the time. I'm working with a group, the Venice Family Clinic, and also the SPA 5 County Health Department under Jan King, to recognize that we need to take emergency measures. I don't think we need to declare a state of emergency, but that's what we need.
Thank you. And just keep in mind, these are comments specific to the items on the agenda, but thank you, sir. And next we have Jay Perriott, followed by Peggy Lee Kennedy, followed by James Lauer. 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, Jed Perriott. I'm a volunteer with the DSA, LA Can, and the Services Not Sweeps Coalition. It really warms my heart to see so many folks here wearing shirts that say everyone in housing, and I'm looking at all the agenda items. There's services and housing on there, and that's what we need. Those are the solutions we should all be focused on. It's really unfortunate that John Lee is stalling in his district. It's unfortunate that John Lee is pushing hateful rhetoric of fear. And it's the same rhetoric we're hearing from Donald Trump as he's in town, and Ben Carson was in town meeting with the chief of police. It's, this is the type of thing that is an impediment that actually disrupts people's ability to get housing and accept housing in their neighborhood, is when you push these talking points. And so I want to remind everyone, unfortunately what we're seeing with Donald Trump coming in is now we're seeing folks that we thought were on our side, they're kind of all of a sudden siding with Donald Trump. Yesterday, Mark Ridley Thomas betrayed his community. He betrayed all of us. We had 80 people speaking out against criminalization, and he couldn't say one word, but he voted for it. He voted to criminalize people. He lost all credibility yesterday. And I'm here to ask everyone here before us, are you going to follow that same path? Are you going to side with Donald Trump, or are you going to side with the people? And you're going to side with real solutions, because that's what it is. It's not. There's no middle road here. It's one side or the other. It really is right now. There's a campaign out there that you're all considering. It's not called Everyone In. It's called Everyone Out. And we made a map, the community of their proposal for 4118, what that looks like. I know Mitchell Fair's going to tell me I'm off topic. I'm not. This literally banishes homeless people from our streets completely. We must force them to reject this ordinance completely, reject the city attorney's proposal, and reject Donald Trump, because that's what this is. This is everyone out, or perhaps everyone in by force, where they're going to force people into shelters with police and citations and arrests. This is a disaster. Vote no, please.
Got Peggy Lee
Please, Homeless and
Kennedy.
Poverty Committee.
Peggy
Do
Lee
not allow
Kennedy,
this to pass.
followed by James Lauer,
I don't have
followed
to call
by
you Mark
Kendrick
Lee.
Rusted. Peggy Lee Kennedy, followed by James Lauer, followed by Kendrick Rusted.
Oh, I just lost some seconds. Peggy Lee Kennedy, Venice Justice Committee. I'm really disappointed with how the HHH funds have been delegated to private developers. I think that's wrong, and I think a huge mistake has been made that oversight has not been used by people that actually are end users that have a lot of experience of what the needs are out here and what's really happening out here, because I have seen our affordable housing in Venice get lost. Just incredible losses of housing on our beaches by these violators of short-term rentals and violating the Mellow Act. I mean, it's just a madness that there's been no real end-user oversight, in my opinion, and to work with private developers instead of having real public housing, protected public housing, is a sham. Because you see what happens when their little covenants are up. That's it. Out you go. Die on the streets. I want to say also about, it's really alarming to me to hear people use the F word or any derogatory term towards anybody of color or disability or their weight or their age. It's very alarming. But what's even much more alarming to me is when I see racist laws passed and promoted by this committee. That's really upsets me much more than hearing the F word by somebody that has 2 minutes of public comment. So I think that's something that needs to be said. Too bad you had to hear the F word.
All right, James Lauer on items 2 and 3, followed by Kendrick Rustad. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity to speak today. Quite some characters we have, but it's a pleasure to be able to be part of this general public comment. And just wanted to say in regards to items 2 and 3 that, I could have some anecdotal stories, but it's obvious we don't need the eyes of the nation on us any more than Trump's visit. And, it's the fact of the matter is, as the mayor believes, and I do as well, it is a crisis that we can solve in our lifetimes. It's something that's in front of us every single day from the day I landed 7 years ago on Los Angeles Street. And I later moved to 6th and Main, but, overlooking Los Angeles Street every night and hearing everything from screaming to police violence to hosing off in the morning to people's belongings being stolen. And the fact that it's up in the air is just kind of amazing to me that we're still even debating these types of things. Obviously, so much more needs to be done. Let's set an example, put, our hearts and our minds towards this a little more, get creative, and, full court press. It's time to, solve the homeless crisis, and measures like HHH funding absolutely need to pass. It's surprising to me that it's even, this was a discussion several months ago, that it's even still up for debate. Why is this moving forward? Why aren't more projects, developing? And it's really just a lot of talk I've been hearing. And it's been full-on housing crisis mode since I arrived here several years ago. And it's a tough conversation when someone brings it up, it's just such a multifaceted issue that needs, to be approached in a delicate yet detailed way. And it can be done. We just need to get behind measures like HHH, vote for the funding, kick out the racists, and let's Let's live a happy and nice. Yeah, let's be happy together and, surprise the nation what we can actually do, and fuck Trump. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have Michael Thorpe. No, wait, Kendrick Crosted. And then Michael, let me make sure about this. Kendrick Crosted, you have items 2 and 6. Okay, great.
Yes. Good afternoon. Thank you all for your service. I urge you to approve more supportive housing and affordable housing in all of LA, especially District 12. It should be equally distributed. This morning I went to the Modular Construction Summit and I learned so much. They got amazing breakthroughs. And I learned I could actually solve the housing crisis in the next couple years. So I challenge you to actually do that. I strongly recommend that these committees meet more than once a month because time is money. I'm sorry?
We meet twice a month.
Oh, twice a month now, okay. The Oversight Committee looked like they were only meeting once a month and things get dragged down and time is money and now it's lives. So you need to approve things once they're submitted immediately because prices fluctuate and change drastically, especially in today's world. I will be happy to set up an educational seminar for you guys to educate you all on the new products out there and available. Let's see. That's all.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so the remaining cards I have are for multiple public comment cards only. We'll get to public comment a little later, but we have Mike Greenspan who has all the items. So Mike Greenspan, Adam Lane. This says item number 1 only on Adam Lane, but okay. Adam Smith. So is Mike Greenspan, maybe he's in the overflow room because we're crowded, but Mike Greenspan, Adam Smith, and Adam Rice. If you could make your way forward. And Christine Rodriguez, if you could all make your way forward. This name I just can't read at all, but we'll figure it out. So Mike Greenspan, step forward. Mr. Greenspan. Yes. Adam Smith. Adam Rice, come on up.
Are we on agenda items or public?
This is the specific agenda items, not public comment,
Okay.
not general. Go ahead, Mr. Greenspan.
Yes, Mike Greenspan, a Bruin butt-kicking Florida Gator. Now, the first one, affordable. Maybe I should sound Clinton-esque. What do you mean? Remember when Clinton said, well, you first have to define what sex is, right after you define what is. Well, that's a very good basis for what is affordable. We should be defining what affordable is right after we define what is. Because affordable is one thing if you're Shaquille O'Neal, and affordable is another thing if you're living on the street. It really is. Number 2, I was never for HHH. I had my doubts. I was cynical. I remember getting into an argument with someone that Mike Bonner knows, and that's Susie Williams, and she said, oh, well, we'll have an oversight committee. Now, I know Susie's more influential than me because she sang at Bill Rosenthal's memorial at the park, but now I've counted 3, and a guy named General Jeff yesterday at the supervisor meeting said there's 5 committees on the matter. So I said, yeah, we're doing a great job. The union goons are really eating it up administratively, and we're paying for it. It's not putting housing together. Now, as far as supportive housing or homeless support services, let's bust that piñata. Chip Kelly, the head coach of the Bruins that led him to 3 losses already, makes $3 million a year. He lives in a nice house. And we're in the 2nd year of his contract. That $3 million could be better spent going for homeless support services instead of going down this black hole drain of waste. That's our taxpayer money. It's not your money to spend like you're on a Bloomingdale spending spree. It's ours to use. We trust you for it, and boy, we're getting burned, aren't we? Thank you. And your buildings still suck.
All right, Adam Smith, items 2 and 3 specifically, items 2 and 3.
Not public comment yet?
Not public comment yet, just items 2 and 3. 2 minutes.
All right. Adam Smith, sorry, I missed your first calling of my name because I'm trying to potty train my son on the 10th floor of City Hall. They sure don't. They sure don't, Peggy. So let's keep talking about Proposition Triple H, and let's start with the audit. Here's a report back. The subsidy keeps going up. The price of these doors keep going up, but we don't know where the money has already been being spent. Why isn't there political will to get that audit into our hands? I mean, we know that Ron G., not the producer, the city controller, is running for mayor, and he's kind of using this as leverage, it seems. I don't know what the fuck, where it is. People have been pushing it for over a year. He's been saying it's coming for over a year. I think all Triple H should stop. You shouldn't be able to do a report back without releasing that audit to the people. I'm done. You can.
Okay, thank you. Adam Rice.
Yeah.
Followed by Christine Rodriguez, followed by Chris Roth. Mr. Rice.
Well, welcome back, Councilmember O'Farrell. I see why you skipped the last meeting. And by the way, Mr. Bonin, Adam Smith lives in your district now. Just letting you know. So we want to discuss Triple H, and Adam really hit the point home. We have not seen the audit. We have more call for projects, yet we haven't seen a door open. I know that this takes time to do construction, but it took 3 years to figure out who's going to get some money. I mean, I know that the developers lined up that day. I know because I was here. So I can't believe that you haven't opened one thing. And in response to that from City Hall, do we get a move to house people? Do we get some housing vouchers for hotels? Do we get some money going? No. Instead, we get an attempt to rewrite 4118D as a cover-up to your failure. To your failure to properly administer this $1.2 billion that we taxed ourselves to give. And we've talked to several of you individually about this law. I know some of you have pulled it back. You don't like the stand your ground thing, right? And Mr. Bonin, from what I hear, you don't mind it around permanent supportive housing, Triple H housing that is designed to house homeless people. You're fine with an enforcement zone there. But in reality, this would wipe people off of the street. And every service provider in this room should be wary of this. This will wipe away your clientele. This will push them into the desert, simply to cover the incompetence of this body and the city council proper. This is what it is. And thank you, Mr. O'Farrell, for proposing this. You cannot believe how many people are against it. We'll see you soon, motherfucker.
All right. Christine Rodriguez, followed by Chris Roth, followed by Audrey General. I believe it's Audrey General. Okay. Yes.
Hello, my name is Christine Rodriguez. Thank you folks for holding this space, for letting folks talk, and most importantly for the initiatives that you're trying to put forward. I am a housing specialist, again, at the East Los Angeles Women's Center. We help out survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. And through my work, I've noticed that, yes, there is a gigantic homeless problem, but specifically with my work, women and children are being affected every day. I think this is very important because this is the future of Los Angeles and also of our whole, our state where children are being homeless, and that affects them in the most detrimental developmental ways. I think it's great that you're doing things, but unfortunately, this is not enough. We need more funding. We need things to be streamlined. I think that's the point that is very frustrating that we have this money that's sitting there, waiting there, but, it's not going to anywhere. It's not going to these families. It's not going to these babies. It's not going to these pregnant mothers. And people are just kind of left out without any kind of support. Again, specifically with these domestic violence or sexual assault survivors, they have to go through the process just like everybody else, and sometimes their safety is at risk for themselves and for their children. Children are missing school because they don't have transportation to go to school, or they don't even have a place to live. What I'm asking of this committee is with your items, if you could try to add some specific, it's too general is what I'm trying to get at. It's too general for women and children who are facing domestic violence. They need a specific kind of program to help them out. I understand that there are veterans, there are people who have medical, diagnosis that makes it very hard. We need more specific kind of initiatives that focus on these very vulnerable populations. Again, I think things need to be streamlined a lot more so that people can stop coming to city council meetings and yelling at you folks. If you could streamline this process, we might have more happy people coming in to say thank you. But thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And just let the record reflect that the entire time Ms. Rodriguez spoke, Wayne Spindler was disrupting the meeting with an electronic sound and verbal sounds. And he's disrupting the meeting now as I'm calling out the fact that he disrupted the meeting. So that is your last warning, Mr. Spindler. Chris Roth, followed by Audrey General, followed by Mel Tilakaratne.
Good afternoon, Council. It's great to see so many people here for this meeting today. It's always good to see a lot of people being very engaged in these discussions, specifically when the discussion is surrounding Triple H spending and oversight. It'd be really great for us to be able to see exactly how all that money has been spent or what is happening with it. The audit should have been made public a long time ago. We need to understand why it is taking so long for us to see meaningful gains coming out of the Triple H funding that was passed. We chose to tax ourselves. We want to see some results coming out of that. These housing units should not take this long to get open and up and running, and we need to be finding a way to make them move along a lot faster. In addition to the Triple H stuff, I want to point out again that 4118, the proposed changes to it with sections C and D are absolutely atrocious. C is a slap in the face toward all of the civil rights progress that has been made in the last number of decades, and the changes imposed in Section D, which it's nice to see that Mitch is not listening, would make it effectively criminal act to be sitting, sleeping, or lying anywhere in the city, especially once you go in and look beyond the cursory maps that the LA Times initially released, and you realize that that 10-foot rule relating to driveways and building entrances really does mean that the entire city basically starts turning into one big red zone when it comes to anyone trying to survive on the streets. Thank you.
All right, we have Audrey General, followed by Mel Tilakaratne, followed by Father Udo.
Just a reminder that it's multiple public comment,
Yes.
not general public comment.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. So multiple item comment, not general. Thank you.
It's Audrey George, by the way.
Audrey George, okay.
The way Councilmember O'Farrell and others have tried with 4118 revisions to erase and criminalize houseless people.
Ma'am, this is general public comment.
I've got
Specific to the
I've got
items.
general public comment.
No,
on
it's
mine.
not general.
Mine says general.
Multiple item comment.
Mine says general public comment on it.
But it says multiple general. We're not on general public comment, so should we just try this again? Come back?
Yeah, you called it for after.
Yeah.
Can you just give me 1 minute and I'll do it?
General public comment is afterward because we need to hear an item, and then we're going to come back to general. So I appreciate your understanding of that. Mel Tilakaratne on items 2 and 3 specifically.
Basically, we want the City Council to approve the whole HHH package, and we need focus on District 12. We have 0 units of supportive housing. District 12 should not have an exception. We want to make sure that every district of this city carries housing. So, focus on that. District 12 plus the whole HHH package. Please support building housing for our homeless. Thank you.
Thank you. Father Udo, it looks like you have items 1, 2, 3, 4, several of them. Please speak to the items in the next 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for this opportunity. I am Father E.K. Udo. I am a priest at Blessed Sacrament Parish in Hollywood, and we have a long history of providing a lot of services to our own house brothers and sisters. May be aware of the urban sanctuary we have now where we open our doors for the homeless. And so we really do not want any further criminalization of our homeless brothers and sisters. There's been a lot of displacement, and it's pushing our community members to the streets. So instead of jailing our brothers and sisters, we want to try to stop this displacement, and we want to also continue to support affordable housing, building more units, and have rent-stabilized housing for our brothers and sisters. So that's really the point we want to make, to stop this criminalization. We've looked at some of the maps that are being made from this 4118, and it's really curtailing where our brothers and sisters could have space to live. So we don't want this criminalization. We would want our brothers and sisters to have more places, affordable places, where they can live. So thank you very much. This is what we would like.
Thank you. All right, so colleagues, I'd like to take item 2 before we get to all the other items. I understand Mr. Harris-Dawson has a very urgent appointment that he cannot miss. And so, Madam CLA, if you could please read item 2 into the record. Then we'll take comments specific to the item before we hear the report.
Item number 2, Proposition HHH Administrative Oversight Committee transmittal relative to proposed recommendations from the Proposition HHH Citizen Oversight Committee on Proposition HHH Permanent Supportive Housing Loan Program Commitments, Fiscal Year 2018-19, Round 3 Call for Projects.
Thank you. All right, so it looks like a few people are going to have a second stab at this. But this is 1 minute specific to item number 2, Reverend William Freeman, followed by Mel Tilakaratne, who I thought spoke on all the items already, Jane Demian, Robert Frazier. If you all could step forward. Reverend William Freeman on item 2, followed by Mel if you have anything else to add, followed by Jane Demian and Robert Frazier. Sir.
Good afternoon. I am Pastor Bill Freeman from the Congregational Church of Chatsworth, and before I begin, I want to assure you that I'm not going to swear or say a racial slur. Anyways, I'm speaking in support of the project in Chatsworth. If not that, what? If not there, where? If not now, when? I mean, Chatsworth, as I understand it, does not have any kind of housing for the homeless, and it certainly needs it, and as do lots of places in LA City. So I hope you support that project, and I hope it's just the first of many for the city of Chatsworth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Jane Demian, followed by Robert Frazier.
My name is Jane Demian. I'm a board member for the Eagle Rock Neighborhood Council. I'm a homelessness liaison, but I am speaking today as an individual. I am in support of permanent supportive housing throughout Los Angeles and in District 12. We have 2 permanent supportive housing developments in Eagle Rock built before HHH. Tenants are vetted through the council through the coordinated entry system with case managers. Formerly homeless tenants are now housed and are receiving services. Tenants pay no more than 30% of their income on rent. I support permanent supportive housing without expiring covenants, very similar to public housing. More permanent supportive housing is needed throughout Los Angeles to prevent homeless folks from living on the streets and from getting arrested now that the dangerous LAMC 4118 may be criminalizing homeless on the streets. Please build more permanent supportive housing in District 12 and throughout Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Frazier, followed by Paula. I don't have a last name on here, but Paula, followed by Rodney Brown. Yes, sir.
All right. I work out of the Chatsworth area with the homeless,
And we have no supportive housing out there. I'm support of the housing building because we need more housing because there's nothing out there for the homeless. And they're being attacked and abused, by people that have housing because they don't have housing. But it's not because they want to live out there. It's because circumstances made them homeless, losing their job or other things. So we just need more supportive housing out there, and I'm in favor of having housing built out there or some kind of places we can put them out there.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Paula, followed by Rodney Brown, followed by Mike Dennis.
Hi, I'm Paula Cantu, and I'm on the neighborhood council, the NoHo neighborhood council, and I'm a homeless liaison, and I'm also on the homeless committee. And I'm here in support of your item number 2 to please urge you guys to please push this through. We need supportive housing. We need affordable housing. I just would really love for something to happen. It feels like this is something that we voted on and we pay taxes on. And I understand that things need to be approved and things need to be voted on, but it just seems a little silly that we don't have anything solid, and I just would really appreciate you guys pushing that through. And I just want to make an acknowledgement that we are on Tongva land, which was inhabited by Native people prior to this. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And we
We're
celebrate.
still here. Native people are still here. Thank you.
Paula, I just want to let you know that you're aware that Indigenous Peoples Day is October 13th, right here. And so you're invited. It's free. It's going to be wonderful. Our second annual. Thank you. All right, so we have Rodney Brown, followed by Mike Dennis, followed by Caleb Crowder.
Yes, my name is Rodney Brown. Thank you, council members and city attorneys for having me here, allowing us to speak in support of Measure Triple H. I believe that the support of Measure Triple H is needed throughout all 15 city districts. I'm here specifically representing City Council District 8. Our fearless leader, Mr. Dawson. We're doing pretty good in that district. We have about 5 projects underway, and we're looking to work with the rest of the city council members in building affordable housing in their areas. And we're encouraging you to work with more private investors while you're working out the Measure Triple H funding. There are developers that are out there that will work with you to build more affordable housing, and I'm here in support of Measure Triple H. So, thank you.
Thank you. Caleb Crowder, followed by what's his, R.D. Plashert.
You said me.
Oh, I did.
Mike Dennis.
Mike Dennis, okay. Sorry about that. So Mike Dennis, followed by Caleb Crowder, followed by R.D. Plashert.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mike Dennis, Director of Organizing with the Everyone In campaign. We are organizing thousands of folks around the county for moments like today. We urge this committee to pass the full package of Triple H projects. We don't need to recite the level of the crisis and how insane this whole situation is. But I am really concerned that there's going to be some attempts during this item to pull some of these projects off of the package, particularly in CD12. We're very concerned about CD12's ability to keep up with its commitment. Councilmember Lee had committed to 222 units, and right now they have 0 units, and this is the last round of Triple H funding. So we really hope that you all will, as being council members who have taken heat in your districts for supporting projects like this, that you are going to fight and make sure that we have equity across the entire city of LA. Thank you.
Thank you. Caleb Crowder, followed by R.D. Plashert, followed by Michael Thorpe. Yes.
Well, I think Mike hammered home a lot of the points that we're trying to make today. But we're here with everyone, and we're here with a coalition of lots of folks that you see, and we just want to make sure that this board or this committee approves this entire package. Again, I don't think it maybe perhaps it bears repeating. There is a tiny bit of opposition here today I've heard vocalized, but we're in the midst of a crazy crisis, and I think that everyone across this county, community members, elected officials should be stepping up to the plate and taking responsibility for addressing this crisis. And our concern is that perhaps one of these developments might get pulled today. In CD12, there are 0 units currently there. That's unacceptable, even if there are maybe, 500 or 600 people that are experiencing homelessness in that district. We need to build everywhere, so we're just encouraging this committee to support us and make sure we get everything approved today.
Thank you. Artie Plashert, followed by Michael Thorpe, followed by Adolfo.
Thank you.
Thank
My
you.
name is R.D. Plashert. I was homeless recently for 10 months, and I am intimately familiar with the fact that there are no units and no help for my street peers in the Chatworth area, a part of District 12. Currently housed with a Section 8, I can also share my experiences about the extreme difficulty of obtaining housing from landlords who refuse to honor vouchers. I enjoin you to approve the entire package today. I want you to foster both building community and funding sources at the same time. I want you to make sure that things are built with very low and extremely low income housing, or I am going to be homeless again. Having been one of your most vulnerable neighbors, having been swept, criminalized, and terrified that it will happen to me again should things happen with my Section 8, I ask you to improve the entire package. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michael Thorpe, followed by Adolfo, followed by Gabriela Garcia.
It's Michael Thorpe. I've never been here before, so thank you very much for the
A little
opportunity.
closer, Mr. Thorpe, just a little closer, yeah, so we can hear you better.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never been here before, so I have no contempt and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just came off the street. I spent 5 years living in the streets of Los Angeles, and I've endured everything a lot of homeless people have. I've had everything stolen. I've been just everything, and it was horrible. And I found a way out, and if there's anything I could do to help other people do so, I'd be glad to do that because I owe a debt to that. And making ex-convicts out of homeless people is the worst choice, in my opinion, that you could possibly make. And so I hope that you'll consider that. And if there's any other choices would be much better. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Adolfo, followed by Gabriel Garcia, and then Corinne Ho. Adolfo?
Hello, everyone. Hello to the commission. My name is Adolfo. I'm an organizer with the Everyone in Campaign. I'm here to ask the community to approve the entire package today. I'm here to point out that a Measure Triple H and these units are an opportunity for community, an opportunity for your offices. I'd like to commend projects like The Point in District 8 or many of Mike Bonin's projects with Venice Community Housing, which includes low-income artist housing. As I said again, this is an opportunity for us to build something. This is an opportunity for us to walk with community. And I'd also like to bring in some of my experience in CD8. CD8, as you all know, has had a long and beautiful history of struggle in order to bring things to community, in order to build things, in order to build infrastructure. And PSH units have shown that we can accomplish things when we work together, the Everyone in Campaign, community, and council members here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Gabriela Garcia, followed by Corinne Ho, followed by Pastor Lisa Williams.
Good afternoon. My name is Gabriela. I'm the Deputy Director of the Everyone in Campaign, and we're here to urge the committee to approve the entire package. Particularly, there's communities that need it more than others, like CD12, but CD8 and CD15, there's some really committed community-based developers, nonprofit developers, and faith-based developers that are ready to not build ourselves out of this crisis, but add these much-needed units in this part of the city. We need to think locally, which this is an opportunity to do so. Thank you very much.
And thank you for being here last week in full council, facing a sea of red T-shirts in opposition to a permanent supportive housing project in Echo Park, and speaking out in support of that. I really appreciate that, and we'll never forget it.
Thank you.
I wish we'd had all these blue signs on that day, but we'll do a lot more of these. So thank you again, Ms. Garcia. Corinne Ho, followed by Pastor Lisa Williams, followed by Faiza Malik.
Members of the Homelessness and Poverty Committee, good afternoon. Mr. Chair, my name is Corinne Ho, here to represent the Everyone In campaign that you have heard about. I am also here to urge the committee to approve this package, this last round of Triple H proposed project in its entirety. It is important. We are under a time constraint. As we said before, we have a crisis, specifically in City 12, where, as you all know, as we all said time and time again, we have zero units, and we cannot afford to let a loud minority decide the fate of our brothers and sisters who are on sidewalks and who are outdoors. So I am here to urge the committee to again approve this package in its all entirety. It is imminent and crucial that you do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Pastor Lisa Williams, followed by Faiza Malik, followed by Joy McManus.
Good afternoon. I'm Pastor Lisa Williams, and I serve at the United Methodist Church in San Pedro. And I serve a church that is 100 years old, and several years ago there was a plot of land that was donated to the church. And I have had the opportunity over the last 5 years to walk the downtown streets of San Pedro and see the inhumanity and the crisis that is going on within our city. And we have an opportunity to build 49 plus units on that space, and I encourage all of you to please support this entire package. Thank you.
Thank you. Faiza Malik, followed by Joy McManus, followed by Quinn Olson.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Faiza Malik. I'm an attorney with Public Counsel. We urge the committee to approve the Prop HHH Round 3 funding package in its entirety. We also want to caution you that any removal of a project from funding consideration at this stage in the process due to the subjective concerns of an individual council member after it has been objectively scored and vetted by city staff and oversight committees would be highly suspect and subject to legal scrutiny under fair housing laws and state laws that protect affordable housing and shelters. Every council district must do its fair share to build affordable housing and housing for the homeless. No district should be able to opt out. We want to remind the committee that neither the HHH program regulations nor HSID scoring criteria give individual council members the power to unilaterally decide where and whether a supportive housing project will be cited. To the extent any project is removed at this stage, it would be tantamount to an illegal pocket veto and akin to the now defunct letter of acknowledgement policy, which the city removed after PC filed suit to challenge it. So we urge you to approve the whole project.
Thank you. We have Joy McManus, followed by Quinn Wilson, followed by Elaine Loring.
Hello, council members. I'm Joy McManus. I live in CD5, right on the border of Hancock Park, David Rue's district. And I'm also a property owner and a landlord, so I could fit the profile of a NIMBY, but I'm not. I also volunteer at St. James Episcopal Soup Kitchen. I also volunteer with Stories from the Frontline, Marilyn and John Wells Foundation, organization that works with everyone in, and I'm also a member of the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council. I'm here to let you know that I fully support this package, and I hope you will approve the entire package. I commend Councilman Rue. I see him everywhere I go in full support of every kind of housing for our homeless neighbors. And I'm very disappointed in John Lee. I saw him at a candidates forum, and it's very sad to see the stance that he's taking on the Chatsworth project. I support all kinds of housing, bridge homes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Quinn Wilson, followed by Elaine Loring, followed by C.R. Cochran.
Hello.
Hello.
How's everybody doing? We're all right?
You got just 1 minute.
I know, and I'm using it. I appreciate the work everyone is doing. I know that the jobs you have are very difficult. You catch a lot of flack from a lot of sides, from a lot of people, and we appreciate the work you guys are doing. I'm here to speak in support of approving the full package of HHH funding, including, again, in District 12. It's disappointing to me that again and again we find money and power finding opportunities to escape the crises that affect all of us and that affect our city. And I would be very disappointed if, in particular, District 12 found a way to get out of building supportive housing. This is the moral imperative of our time. We are the richest, most powerful country in the world, and we have people that are sleeping on the streets without food and water every night, and that is very disappointing.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Elaine Loring, followed by C.R. Cochran, followed by Andrea Murray.
Hello, I second what he said. Thank you. Solving LA's housing crisis demands a focused effort by citizens and elected officials in all neighborhoods. CD12 is an exempt. I respectfully request the committee to approve the entire package today, and also to do whatever you can as a committee and individually to streamline the process between approval and construction. I too am disappointed that with all the work that has been done, no one's living inside because of HHH yet. Homeless Angelinos are on the streets of Chatsworth. Wouldn't it be better for them to be living inside instead? Thanks very much.
Thank you. Sierra Cochran, followed by Andrea Murray, followed by Tzeni Garcia.
Hi. I'm Sierra Cochran, and I'm actually a stakeholder from the San Fernando Valley, and I'm a former social worker in that particular area. I was born, raised, and educated in the San Fernando Valley, as were my children, so I'm very familiar with Council District 12. I also served with John Lee on one of the boards in that area. What I'd like to just speak upon is the narrative that's taking place about the mentally deficient people and the criminals. And what I've noticed, I participated in the counts and I've been to LASA's meetings, these people are not diligent, they're not the type of people that are being described, and that disturbs me as a former social worker. These are former athletes, students, neighbors, government employees, Olympic athletes, academic decathlon winners, and they're being mistreated. So I would simply like to change the narrative and the description of the type of people in District 12, and I am in support of HHH and the housing.
Thank you. Andrea Murray, followed by, it might be Tzeni Garcia, followed by Tommy Newman.
Thank you. My name is Andrea Murray, and I'm here representing St. Joseph Center and the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles. I'm expressing my support for the approval of 3,000 units of Triple H funded housing, over 2,000 of which are supportive housing, and I'm here to make sure that all of the proposed buildings are approved. We cannot continue building a majority of developments in South Los Angeles and Metro Los Angeles, perpetuating economic segregation and racial resegregation. We need housing everywhere. Many council members, including members of this community, have supported developments in their district despite loud oppositions, and I want to thank you all for that. In the words of everyone in advocates, time after time, the fear has disappeared and support has grown. Council District 12 especially, and all council districts, should be no different. Thank you.
Thank you. Tzeni Garcia, followed by Tommy Newman, followed by Myron Dembo.
Hi, my name is Garcia. I work for St. Joseph Center. Homelessness is a citywide issue. We don't believe it's only common for one community. It's not unique to one segregated area. And with that, the passage of Triple H, it has represented our community commitment countywide to address this and take action to resolve our neighbors who are currently homeless. We do a lot of work in Venice, where residents have made it abundantly clear that it is very important that each community take part and provide their share of building affordable housing and supportive housing for these individuals. And at this point, it's like we ask everybody to put their support behind this. St. Joseph does, so is our partners. Even though there are oppositions in some communities, we always strive to push forward and make sure that we do our best to help one another.
All right. Thank you. All right. Tommy Newman, followed by Myron Dembo, followed by Denise Wendt.
Good afternoon, council members. It's great to see you all. I'll start with the most important part, which is today we're going to vote to approve, hopefully, 3,124 units, which is incredibly exciting, 2,666 of them being supportive. That's a big day for the city of LA, and we're really excited about that, and I'm proud to be here with quite a coalition celebrating that moment. Of course, we're also talking a lot about CD12 and how important it is that we finally got some numbers on that 222 tracker that I know we all love so much. And so we're really hopeful that we can find a way to move that forward. As we know, this is just the first commitment. HHH is the first commitment going in. That gives us 2 years worth of time to find that consensus and get that building approved, which I believe we can do. And then if this doesn't work, we'll be in strong support of using No Place Like Home to build that building in the 12th district, because we know that we need supportive and affordable housing everywhere. So I hope we can find a way to use HHH and get that 222 tracker updated. Thank you all.
Thank you. Myron Dembo, followed by Denise Wendt, followed by Enrique Velasquez.
I'm here to support the entire package. I'm a supporter of everyone in, and it's very apt to use the term everyone in because it doesn't say everyone in except District 12. It is only that all of us get in and help and solve this particular problem. I have found out that there's at least 583 people experiencing homelessness in District 12, and that is probably not even accurate. This is a problem that has to be solved by all of us, and no matter what, the building will not change the lives of anyone already living in the area, but it will improve the quality of life of all the people, and the people who are homeless are members of the community as well.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Denise Wendt, followed by Enrique Velasquez.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak this afternoon. My name is Denise Wendt with EAH Housing, and we are one of the developers that have a project recommended for Triple H funding. We just broke ground a couple weeks ago on another Triple H funded development in CD8, and I'm here to support all of the projects that are being recommended in this round of Triple H funds. We have a project that is located at 4507 South Main Street, and again, we're looking for continued support as we move forward with these developments. Thank you.
Thank you. Enrique Velasquez, followed by Megan Culverd, followed by Stephen Spielberg. Spielberg. Oh, thank you.
Hi, Enrique Velasquez with the Everyone In campaign. I am one of the organizers in San Fernando Valley, and I am here to ask you to approve the full package of funding for the 3,000 plus units of supported housing for our brothers and sisters living, not just in San Fernando Valley, living on the streets not just in San Fernando Valley, but just everywhere LA. I have met with many organizations, have done a lot of work of support for different projects in San Fernando Valley with different residents of San Fernando Valley, and it is not acceptable to me really to think that District 12 can be exempt from building any needed units in that district. One thing to remember is that, with all due respect, that this is a temporary seat that this young lady is utilizing. In March next year, we will have a different council person, and that council person will, keep that in mind. Whatever decision you make, that will have some weight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. All right, now we go to Megan Culverd, followed by Steven Spielberg. All right, you got quite a name going there. Followed by Rochelle Mills.
Hello, my name is Megan Culverd. I'm the Senior Policy Director with PATH, People Assisting the Homeless. I am here today in partnership with United Way and Everyone In to urge the committee to approve the entire package in front of you today. PATH believes in pursuing win-wins in communities, and we know that when our homeless neighbors move off the streets and into permanent homes, everybody wins. Because quality of life improves for all people when tangible and permanent solutions to homelessness are brought before our communities. We have concerns regarding a development in CD11. We believe that community engagement is crucial to the long-term success and longevity of any development. Community engagement is fundamental, but so is the early funding commitments necessary to get these developments and broad engagement processes off the ground. We can only hope that by approving supportive housing and saying yes to more affordable housing options is never interpreted as a sign of our lack of concern for neighborhoods, but instead seen as the single greatest tool that we have to benefit and invest in our neighborhoods, because everybody wins, everyone wins
Thank you
when
so
our
much.
people make it home. Thank you.
Thank you. Steven Spielberg, followed by Rochelle Mills, followed by Erica Hartman.
Hi, I am Steven Spielberg.
All right, you are the Steven Spielberg.
Like my colleague Denise Wendt here, I work for EAH Housing. We're a 50-year-old nonprofit. I'm really here just to support all the HHH projects, but in particular, we have one in CD9, 4507 South Main Street that we're very excited about. We also recently broke ground at CD8. We have a project in CD5 in pre-development, and so we're really here just to support everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Rochelle Mills, followed by Erica Hartman, followed by Sydney Stone.
Hi, this is Rochelle Mills. I'm with Innovative Housing Opportunities. I am a resident in CD10, have lived all my life in South LA, and I'm so excited to have a project that we are hoping will be approved in HHH on Manchester and 87th. We have worked tirelessly with the council staff to make sure that this is a mixed income project that handles all of the needs of our community, from those who have great need to those young people who are looking for a place and are not interested in buying a house. It will be a mixed use. It will have an arts component. And we are also working with the council office to make sure that during that time that we're going through entitlements, that we're activating that community and engaging the community. And at their request, we have waited until next week to start a formal process, but we really urge that these projects move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. Erica Hartman, followed by Sydney Stone, followed by Natalie Kritz-Christoph.
Good afternoon, members of the Homelessness and Poverty Committee. My name is Erica Hartman, and I'm the Chief Program Officer of the Downtown Women's Center. And I'm here in support of item 2. I ask that you approve the full package and ensure that all districts meet their commitment to provide housing to end homelessness in anyone's backyard. We need housing in everyone's backyard, and we need affordable housing. We need supportive housing. We do not need criminalization of homelessness. I personally have the honor of reporting to a permanent supportive housing building every day for work in the heart of Skid Row, and I recognize the incredible value that it brings to the lives of our residents to have that supportive housing, but I've also gotten to see how we need housing in other districts and other areas, and for that reason we've expanded to community-based housing, so I hope to see more housing around LA as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sydney Stone, followed by Natalie Christoph, followed by Yvonne Michelle Autry.
Hi, I'm Sydney Stone with Innovative Housing Opportunities. We are developing SOLA at 87th. This is could be a 100 to 200 unit affordable housing development with PSH units. We have been recommended for Prop HHH funding through the Oversight Committee. We have overheard that we may end up getting pulled today because of the delay in the round 3 recommendations, and also because we are getting an acquisition loan that has gone through an HSID approval process as well. We've had numerous delays in extending our acquisition with ISEF, the charter school organization. If we do not get a recommendation today with a closing date on this purchase of October 3rd, ISEF may not extend that date, and this deal may die if we get pulled tonight. So I'm hopeful that our project, as well as all the other projects, do get recommended and do move forward, and that we can be under construction in 18 months. This is a 4% tax credit project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. All right, the next 3 speakers, you have multiple comment cards, so I think maybe you filled them in after my announcement that we're only hearing, we heard multiple items first. Now we're just hearing 1 minute on item 2 specifically, since that's the item that's before us. So Natalie Kritz-Christoph, Yvonne Michelle Autry, and Guillermo Torres, 1 minute each specific to item 2.
Hello, my name is Natalie Kritz-Christoph. I'm here to voice my support for the proposed HHH funding package in its entirety. The direness of the tenants' crisis in our city warrants this vital relief for thousands living on the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Yvonne Michelle Autry, item 2 specifically, 1 minute. And Guillermo Torres, 1 minute. Item number 2, if you're around, Guillermo Torres.
Yes, as a 16-year stakeholder living and working downtown,
present resident of Alexandria Apartments, former resident of the Hayward Manor Apartments, both apartment complexes owned by Isaac Shomoff. I'd like to encourage you to create and to continue to create more housing, with the first priority being housing those that are homeless and houseless. Not the incrimination, not the extermination, not the genocide, or the demonization of those that are Section 8 recipients or that are affordable housed constituents. We need that to be the first priority. We are undergoing and experiencing, I think, a real expansion in the regentrification process. I've had neighbors, I believe, that have been coerced or might have been hired to push me out of the Alexandria because I do participate in affordable housing programs, and that is illegal. We need to have the expansion of more affordable housing and not the diminishment in lieu of the viable housing or the condominiums which you are building. Homeless and houselessness is the first priority.
For item number 2. Thank you.
And that is specific. I really don't appreciate your rudeness. You're very rude.
Hi. My name is Guillermo Torres. I represent Clergy and Lady United for Economic Justice.
I can barely hear you, sir.
We are a network of 1,000 interfaith leaders. For too long, the homeless community has, we've been indifferent to the homeless community, almost become invisible to us. We lost that connection of compassion and justice and sense of humanity, and we're all responsible for this. We support supported housing, but unlike this suggestion for supported housing, we need to abolish bills like 4118, who criminalize the homeless community. Because for too long, we have, like I said, have had that disconnection, and they almost become invisible to us, our community. And we all, including the faith community, share the responsibility and accountability, right? And you know, I remind you of one scripture that said, when you do whatever you do unto one of these little ones, you do unto me. We lock up and criminalize the community. It's like locking God himself. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now at this time we've heard all the comments on item 2. I'd like to invite our city administrative officer up, along with our HCID department, Housing Community Investment Department, to go over the report. If you could please present the report to us. Welcome, gentlemen, and whoever would like to begin.
Hello, Ed Gibson, Housing Community Investment Department. With me today is Andre Perry, the bond manager and the one responsible for closing the HHH loans. And also with me to my right is Tim Elliott, who is the program manager on the production side, and he'll be going through the commitments for the HHH deal today.
In February this year, HCID issued the third call for projects for the current fiscal year, and we received 44 applications requesting $357 million, which is far more than we had available. After going through this selection process, we are recommending 34 projects for $231 million worth of funding, subject to passing a background check and a legal review. These projects will contain 2,171 units, of which almost 1,700 will be supportive housing. This will raise the number of units funded by Triple H, the housing program, to 7,640, of which 5,800 are supportive. And together with the other initiatives that are on your agenda today, this will raise the number of supportive housing units funded by the program to 6,900. So the recommendations went through, also included in the recommendations, there's also funding for the HHH Design Challenge, which is also on the agenda today, and request to revise the financing plan for a project in CD11 on Missouri Street. So 6 applications were submitted by 3 developers, failed to meet the minimum requirements, and were limited on a threshold basis, and another 4 projects were withdrawn. Right about the time that we took applications, the county's No Place Like Home funds, Prop 1, became available. And so we were able to lower the subsidy amount, the maximum subsidy amount, from $220 to $140. And then we encouraged people that had applied to the county to either give back commitments from prior rounds or lower their ask in this round. And as a result, 12 developers did that, and we got back $26 million. So that was enough to fund all the rest of the projects on the list. So the remaining 34. So these 34 are in 13 different council districts, and if they're all approved, we'll have at least one in every council district, as we've heard. And 11 of them are in high opportunity areas, and that's a big increase from prior rounds. So the average subsidy is, the average development cost is $501,000, which is down slightly from $511,000. And we've had, but there are several projects that are less than $400,000, and there's several that are being built with shipping containers, or they're motel conversions, or even just stick-built projects with very little parking, surface parking. So that's encouraging. And several of them are on city-owned land, which is worth $28 million. So the design challenge project that's item number 1, there's a $7 million recommendation for that one, included in our report. And then finally, the Missouri Place project, which was approved previously, had a big cost increase of about almost $11 million since it was approved. Now, they're not asking for any more money, but what they are asking to do is convert more units to supportive housing, and they've asked the Housing Authority to give them more vouchers, which will let them increase their perm loan. And they're also asking to raise the rents on the affordable units to 80% of median, which is allowed under the tax code. And in that area, those rents, even then, they're 44% below market. So we feel that that's fair. So we're here to answer any questions. I know you've heard a lot
All right. Is that it? Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, gentlemen, what I'd like to do is we'll get to the Q&A, but I understand we have Eric King here from the Office of Councilmember John Lee.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Eric King, and I'm here on behalf of Councilmember John Lee of Council District 12. I'm here to speak regarding Project 9, number 9 on the recommended project list, also known as the Topanga Apartments. This project is located in Council District 12, and as you know, Councilmember Lee was confirmed only a few weeks ago as council member of the district. Because of that, our office has not had adequate time to communicate with all parties involved in this project. Councilmember Lee respectfully requests that this body hold this project in committee for a maximum of 4 weeks in order for our office to provide adequate outreach to the project's surrounding communities and to work in close coordination with the developer as well as the community to address any concerns that may exist. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
All right. Thank you. And then, Mr. Marquise Harris Dawson, I would turn the floor over to you at this moment to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everybody who's come and been a part of this conversation. It's one of the more heartwarming conversations and discussions we've been in the city of Los Angeles over the issue of homelessness. And what I am about to propose and then not propose provides a level of complexity that I want everybody to hold on tight for. I'm putting forward a motion now that we pull out 2 projects in Council District 8, one at Sola and 87th, and one Florence Avenue Apartments. With this, Council District 8 has 4 projects on this docket. This is asking for a delay by 30 days of 2 of those projects. With the 2 that we will approve, Council District 8 will have approved in excess of 600 units of permanent supportive housing in Council District 8. Okay, so we're making that request. I am respectfully asking everybody not to conflate the request from CD12 with the request from CD8. CD8 has 600 units of permanent supportive housing units. Council District 12 has 0. And we've been at this for 4 years now. And so I think when we, again, I asked for the committee's consideration. I asked for a second on that motion. But I purposefully draw a distinction between our request in South LA, where not only has District 8, but District 9, District 10, not only exceeded the 222 commitment, we've all doubled it.
You can throw in
And 13 and 14 and 1 and 15 and 11, which border me, are both close. It is absolutely, it would be absolutely insulting to the people of South LA for this request to be conflated with the request from CD12, and so I ask this to be considered on its own.
And Mr. Harris Dawson, I understand this is for additional outreach and community input as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you. So a few questions for the panel that I have is, first of all, with this report includes 34 projects. What does that bring the total project number to? I know it was over 100 last time in terms of HHH approved projects. So
it would bring the total up to 113.
So this would get it to 113 projects. All right. And just the criticism and the frustration that it's taking a while is warranted. I am not going to diminish that. But the voters took action in November of 2016, less than 3 years ago. So we're doing pretty well in terms of nearly 113 projects approved, and it will get us to somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,500 projects, or units rather, in the pipeline, with more to come. So I just want to put that out there for the record as well. And we actually did open one of the HHH projects already, and within less than 12 months, we'll have over 1,400 units available, occupied, and people living in them in less than 1 calendar year from now. So I want to put that out there, and we're exercising our fiduciary responsibility, and we're all on the same page in terms of let's get these going. Another question is geographic distribution of Prop HHH projects funded to date. Can you give us a general geographic distribution update?
Well, in the current round, 11 or a third of the projects are in high or moderate resource areas, and that's up from the last time we reported on this. It was 25%.
And can you further explain what high or moderate resource area means?
It's a HUD federal definition of high resource areas. It's a combination of factors: test scores, lack of environmental contaminants. It's a complex definition, but it's generally the west side and the West Valley, and there are some pockets like Koreatown, and so we've made pretty good inroads. And I think part of this is because this round we signaled to everybody that this was competitive, and they went out and found projects like CD12 or ones in Koreatown where the land is expensive, and specifically that's getting those projects is specifically the desired outcome of a motion that was passed by this committee earlier this year.
Okay. Thank you. And what's the remaining balance of our $1.2 billion bond allocation for Measure HHH?
Well, if there'd be about in the housing program, there'd be $1 million. And I know that the facilities program is actually over.
But that's the balance, $1 million out of the $1.2 billion?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Of commitments.
Of commitments.
All
right, and that accounts for the 113 projects?
Correct.
And the innovation fund.
The innovation fund
and the innovation
and
fund.
the facilities the facilities program.
And the design challenge.
All right, the design challenge, which we'll hear about a little later. Okay, thank you, colleagues. Mr. Bonin.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thanks everybody for the testimony. It is really, really exciting to have several thousand units in front of us for approval. And, I, for one, feel very strongly that every council district needs to be doing something. There's some parts of the city that historically, as you've said, have not stepped up. And, my district was one of them. And we have turned that around significantly. And the whole city needs to do that. And I think that it's important that that we stick to that commitment. A couple quick questions, or one correction. There's a error in the HSID report of August 20th, where it lists Project 30 VA Building 207 as under CD as not applicable. That should be listed as CD11. CD11 fought to get the money spent there. We surrounded it. We worked with the developer. We worked with the community. I want my numbers on the board. So that will mean today we've got in CD11 we've got Barry, we've got the TSA project in the Oxford Triangle in Venice, we've got a VCHC project, and we have that VA one. That'll be 263 total units, then plus the Missouri one and the other VA ones and another VCH project. That gets us to 493 in CD11. Not nearly as good as CD8, but we're trying to catch up because we really all need to be part of this. So when the H money is done, we still want to do more. I've got 2 more projects in the pipeline. I've got one near my place in Mar Vista that we're working on. We've got more in the pipeline in CD11. What funding sources will be available once H is depleted?
We have our federal funds, the home funds, and the city's allocation of 9% tax credits, which is worth about $100 million. The county has No Place Like Home, which I think they're about to commit $400 million out of the $700 million. So they'll still have substantial funds. And then there's and then there's the state. It's the other proposition that was passed in December, and that's and they've refunded the multifamily housing program and some others. And then there's the what's so-called cap and trade money, which we brought in about $87 million last year through that. So, you know, for the first couple of years of the Triple H program, we were going it alone. And there's a lot of resources in the system, now more than we've had in the past. So I think projects will continue to be produced.
Yeah. I think that
in the city.
Oh, go ahead. The challenge ahead is HHH is we've committed. We've moved very quickly and quite a long ways. The state has come on board, and so there is the mental health funds, which is the No Place Like Home, and they're funding projects, and they're funding HHH projects, and that's how things are moving very quickly now and stepping up. And then the state has its multifamily housing program that Tim was alluding to for with both affordable housing and a supportive housing component, which is key to what the work is that we're doing here. And then some other governmental resources will come online here, $20 million here, $20 million there. I think the key is we need to make sure that sources continue to show up.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be the key. And the other resources that need to show up are operating subsidy and Section 8 vouchers and those, because if most likely you need some type of operating subsidy to make sure you can stay in the home.
So the other projects in the pipeline, and I've got a couple in mind, there's funding sources from a variety of places available for them once we complete Triple H. Good, because we've got a lot more work to do. Wanted to ask a question. A number of the folks who spoke in public comment asked or challenged the funding mechanism we're using, sort of the whole framework of providing money to developers, and instead asked, why the hell aren't we doing public housing or social housing? I'm definitely interested in social housing, but my understanding is that until the Scott Wiener, Ben Allen bill puts on the ballot a constitutional amendment, that any such project would have to go to the voters for approval. Is that correct?
I personally can't comment on that.
Well, that's Article 34.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something different.
So we do have Article 34 authority. We went to the ballot a few years ago, actually, I think 10 years ago now, and we're a little thin in certain districts.
Yeah.
But overall, the city has authority to build.
So we're good to go. We can work on social housing proposals.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's less about the social housing, but when you refer to the funding mechanism, it's that the other sources that we use have certain limitations and guides as well, and we're doing private-public partnerships now, but I wouldn't say it's going to the developer, and if it gets if it gets a loan, that's a 55-year covenant in a loan on a project, so we will have long-term affordability in these projects, period.
Got it. Okay. All right. That's all for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bonnet. Out of your questioning, so you talk about present and future additional dollars. You talked about the federal tax dollars that could be around 100 million. Talk about cap and trade, which could be around 87 million. No Place Like Home. Other funding sources beyond HHH, since we're 1 million left in the pot of 1.2 billion. At the next meeting, could you report on a total number of funds that we will? I know it's kind of a shifting reality in terms of the actual funding, but if we could take a look at the total of those sources, then we know our approach a little better. We can cater an approach to the funding at hand. If you could come back with that total or that tally, that would be helpful, I think.
What we can do is come back and identify those sources that we're referring to and the amounts that they put out on in their calls, and as best we can track where their spending is. Most of those monies require the developer in almost all cases to go apply for those funds, and they're all very competitive. But we can list clearly which ones are specifically for supportive housing, which ones are listed for affordable housing, and which ones tie related to an affordable housing project, such as cap and trade funds.
I think we could definitely use that specific information to help form our approach. And then, of course, something that we're all supportive of, I think, and it's something that I'm certainly working on, and that is what the state budget might bring us next year. And that would be a return of Homeless Housing Assistance and Planning Program, or HAP. We're calling it HAP 2 from the state. And the request of the state coming through for a match for local municipalities that have created a funding source themselves. And so we could keep the production of permanent supportive housing going at least for another year or beyond, and get well beyond the 10,000 units that is the stated goal when voters went to the polls in 2016. It's just a numbers game at a certain point. 10,000 units is not going to house 36,000 people, but as we get closer to 20,000 units, it could make a real significant difference. So anyway, I just thought I'd put that out there as well. And yes, please.
Good afternoon, Yolanda Chavez with the CEO's office. I just wanted to clarify that once you approve item 2 and 3 today, the entire $1.2 billion of Prop HHH will be committed. In fact, we have a bit of a gap on the facility side, and there's a report coming to you that I think you'll hear at the next meeting of about $3 million. We do believe that with the interest earned from the bonds that are currently in the accounts, we'll be able to make that up within the next couple of years. So we're not concerned about that small gap, but we are way beyond the $1.2 billion committed.
All right, I appreciate that disclosure. So thank you, Ms. Chavez. Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for this report. And Mr. Harris-Dawson, as you know, I'm on this committee. I'm the newest member here still, and in 2 years, I've achieved about 2/3 of my stated 222 goal in 2 years of being on the council. But I want to make clear, because I can appreciate the need for extensive community outreach, and on a project that had begun initial conversations that had stated it had fulfilled its community outreach. It was through my investigative efforts of mine and my staff that very basic infrastructure wasn't being included in this project. And these are things that, again, have a significant impact in neighborhoods and the livability, and for those that are actually going to be living in these facilities as well. So we can't ever shortchange that process. I think it's an important one. So I just want to state that for the record, because as someone who has been here about 2 years and has worked very diligently to try and fulfill those numbers, as well as help mitigate a lot of the concerns that come with it. Because again, our responsibility is to do it right. When we do it right, we can do it extensively effectively throughout the city and meet the needs as it's demanded. So with that, I wanted to let you know that I second your request, Mr. Harris-Dawson, because I think extensive community outreach is an important part of this conversation so that we too can help encourage that more people are in on this process, that they are supportive of the work that we are doing, and so that we can help deliver the number of projects that we need in order to fulfill providing permanent supportive housing in the units that we have that we are currently demanded in the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, I'm very pleased to see all of this, and hearing the total number, over 3,000 units, is very exciting to hear. And I'm also pleased that I have yet another project in the list as well, the 537 to 541 Western Avenue project. And I really want to thank the development team for all of their hard work on this, including the Koreatown Youth and Community Center for bringing this project to Council District 4. And if there's anyone else that's listening, any other private or nonprofit developer who would like to build in my district, knowing how hard it is to build in my district, I will welcome you with open arms and roll out the red carpets if you could afford to buy a piece of land in my district, because I could definitely use another project. And I am envious of Councilmember Marquis Harris-Dawson for the success that he's had. But I'm glad the CAO's here. I had a couple of questions. Wanted to ask, there is, I think, an amendment on the table asking for a delay of 4 weeks for some of the projects. What is the effect of delaying any project for 4 weeks in the issuance of this HSID letter?
Well,
I know every project is a little bit different.
You heard from one of the developers saying that they're in escrow to buy property, and the broker's been calling me and asking, where's my commitment letter? So I know that's real.
Which property is that again? Which one is that again?
Sola on 87th.
Okay.
So that project needs an extension on their escrow and could fall out if they don't get it.
Do you know if the project in CD12 is contingent on?
Well, the developers here, but I think they were quoted in the paper this morning saying if they don't get the funding, they're not going to pursue it.
In other words, does a 30-day delay jeopardize the funds? That's the big question.
Right.
The developer's representative is here, so I'll let him answer that.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Jimmy Silverwood, the Vice President of Acquisitions and Development with Affirmed Housing, and we're the developer for the CD12 project. I could answer that question, and I also want to answer any other questions that you might have, because obviously, we want to be as responsive to this committee as we can. As of right now, I would say, a 30-day continuance would put the project in jeopardy, which would be unfortunate. I think that there could be a compromise, though, if the project were conditioned with the approval today for a certain amount of community outreach meetings, and that's what we would be asking of this committee, which, quite frankly, I think is very fair. I think that would at least give us, the reliance and surety on the property acquisition to move forward with the project. And I think it would be a shame for the first project in CD12 to, hit kind of this roadblock. I could talk about anything associated with site selection if there's any questions regarding that. Obviously, we were in the awkward time in which we had the previous council member and we have now the new council member. And so, the outreach to the previous office had occurred, the outreach to the new office has occurred, outreach to the neighborhood council has just occurred. We found out about the neighborhood council meeting that day. We're out of San Diego, we couldn't make it, we weren't invited. But it is our full intent to work with the community and go through a community outreach process before we submit for our entitlements, which is typically the process. The funding is very important to kind of get that process kick-started. And so we are committed to doing that. And so we would request, if that is something that the first request would be to move it with all the projects. The second request would be to condition the project on having a certain amount of community outreach meetings, but still moving it along with the rest of the projects. And I think this committee could do that here today.
let me jump in if you don't mind, Mr. Rue. So,
you're the chair.
If we were, well, I try to be, respectful, but if we were to hold this for up to 30 days maximum, not beyond it. So everyone, this committee is not inclined to reject an HHH project. Okay, we're not inclined to do that at all. I just want to state that for the record. But out of a respectful request from a new colleague for community outreach, as you heard Mr. Harris Dawson make as well, but totally different situation. But
thank you.
But
if you were here 3 weeks, you'd want to.
Right. Well, right. In the interest of deferring to someone who was sworn in 3 weeks ago, if we were to limit it to 30 days, no more than 30 days whatsoever, and perhaps even something could be worked out within that 30 days, and we could get into a situation where it could be simply waived from committee. Is that a scenario that you could live with? Because we certainly don't want to kill this project, but we do want to give our new colleague the time that he feels he needs to work with you and the community on arriving at a consensus.
I think part of the potential issue with that is, wouldn't the project then go to council fully by itself? And so, the council member hasn't done any units in his district, and to tell you the truth, for us to potentially take on that risk and exposure, isn't necessarily, it would be a business decision we would have to make, right? So if we're conditioned with this package to do a certain amount of community outreach, I feel like that's a way that this
I don't
committee
think we're conditioning you to do community outreach. I understand we're simply just...
I know, but that's what I'm asking. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm asking, in order to not have a continuance of 30 days and move the project with the rest of the package to get permanent supportive housing built in CD 12.
I'll tell you what, if we could have Mr. King, if you're still here, Rich King. So I spoke with Mr. Lee today. We know that you're in conversations about this.
We are.
Yeah, right? And so we want to encourage that. We know that it's, the 11th hour, we get all that. As I said, this committee is not inclined to harm the chances of any HHH project. However, you heard Ms. Rodriguez explain the need to, she was in a situation, but the need to at least give someone a chance to fulfill their obligation as, especially in Mr. Lee's case, a newly elected official. So I didn't expect this situation here, but what would you have to add to that, Eric?
Not much, but like I said, our goal is just for outreach, just to speak to our constituents and work with the developer. If something is worked out within 30 days, absolutely. I'd have to consult with my boss, the councilman, further, but our goal is simply outreach. That's it.
If we were to hold it for 2 weeks instead of 30 days, for example?
Obviously, committee members, that's your decision, but just speeds up our outreach efforts. But if that's what the committee decides.
I mean, it's not a new proposal. It's been around for a while. Right. I would imagine that but we're hearing that you're saying the project is going to die, aren't you? If we don't.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, all these projects, right? They all have escrows, and this process
we certainly don't like to have a gun held to our heads, but we also, we have to have some deference to someone who's been in office for 3 weeks in reality as well.
So Mr. Chair, I think if I could continue my line of questioning, I think it'll hopefully shed a little bit of light. Actually, if the CAO could come back, and I think CAO and HSID can answer it, because I don't mean for a debate or a discussion between CD12 and the developer in this forum, but I'd like to ask a question to the CAO and HSID.
But I'm going to need you back when I ask my question.
Okay.
All right.
So.
Can I say something?
Father, everyone's already spoken publicly. No, come on, sir. Come on, sir.
Against the project.
No.
He's heard from people.
All right. Ms. Sanchez.
So my question is, and I think the developer did bring the housing developer did bring up a good point that I wanted to ask. So based on, and this is my experience in the projects that I've done, like in Sherman Oaks as well, Even though we approve today we're basically approving commitment of funds for all of these projects. Does that mean it's a done deal? No. Meaning, I would love for you to describe what happens next. I mean, are we going to do groundbreaking? I mean, obviously every project's going to be different. So are the groundbreaking going to happen next in a month, in 2 months, or 2 years? If you could talk about all the permitting process and the planning process, if you could talk about that.
Well, we're only providing maybe a third of the cost of the project. And so developers need to find other sources. And, you know, and that's on a timeline. There's the county, and then there's the bonding allocation system, and it's going to probably take at least a year for a project like this from this stage to start construction.
Mm-hmm. So part of the, if I may. So part of the challenge is we go first in, which starts all conversations, and we make commitments. And this is the
seed
last
money.
round.
Basically, you're talking about seed money.
We're the beginning that you know you have a base so you can continue to move forward because there's risk and costs associated with every transaction. Each deal is structured a little bit differently, and then we can't get into the exact financials of every project of how their escrows are going to work. But we know they're going to go leverage funds, and they're going to have to go see the next funding rounds, and they're going to need to know certain commitments and have them in hand to go after those funds. And so it's those series of things that trigger, that make every developer worried. They're looking for some type of commitment. But the reality is that we also, that commitment letter that we were providing today is a 2-year commitment because of the fact it's going to take a year. So there's still things to be done, including all the entitlements and everything else that has to be gone through.
Do you want to add?
So all you're approving today for all of these developers is a 2-year financial commitment. So within the 2 years, they have to get 100% of their financing for the project. When they're ready to break ground, you will see a project expenditure plan with that project. And then that's when you are providing the money. Right now, it's just a 2-year commitment. Lots of things can happen. Mm-hmm. Some projects may not, may fall through for whatever reason. But it's a 2-year letter of commitment that they could take literally to the bank to get the financing sources from the county and the state and get all their permits and everything else they need to break ground. But you're going to see all of these projects come back when they're ready to break ground in a project expenditure plan, because that's the only time we issue bonds, when they're in the project expenditure plan.
So let me make it clear. So basically, our commitment here is if you can't get this done in 2 years, you lose the money.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't get it.
And on average, what if HSID, our CEO, could answer this question? On average, what's the time of length it costs? It takes to build permanent supportive housing, which everybody complains about that it takes too long. But what's the average?
18 to 24 months.
For construction. He's referring
right,
to.
Plus the pre-development is at least
we're in pre-development right now.
Right. So that's at least a year, and then there's, depending on the size of the project, 18 to 24 months construction.
So you're looking at 3 to 5 years on any development project.
So basically,
So we expedite that by providing these commitments, which helps get things moving much faster.
So basically, this is one of the complaints that we get in City Hall and City Council here, that we passed HHH several years ago, and it's still, many people are complaining, why isn't anything up yet? Why isn't anything built? And this is part of the process, because even though we expedite it as fast as possible, humanly possible, pre-development takes about at least a year, and once we break ground, it's going to take another year and a half, year to 2 years.
Yeah, year to year.
So it could take, the fastest thing that we could build is about 2 years to about 5 years.
Correct.
And from this day going forward, we're going to have the developer has to work with the community, the council office, building and safety, planning department to get approved on everything. The height, the color of the paint, landscaping, the number of beds. Number of beds is actually kind of fixed in there, right? But a lot of all these other things will be up for discussion, including community engagement. So there will be a lot of time for that. And I could even attest to that. Even for my flagship project of the LGBT Center, when literally we were about to open, we couldn't open because we couldn't get some permits done. So even if afterwards, it's a big struggle. So believe me, I believe in community outreach. believe me, I believe in community outreach. I have tons of community outreach, and I know how difficult it is. So, not to put you on the spot, Councilmember Marquis Harris Dawson, but knowing the fact that just because we move this forward, there's plenty of time for more engagement. Would that be sufficient, or do you really want? I mean, what?
No. It's with the deference to Mr. Chair, it's wholly insufficient because there's a particular factor that has to be considered here that doesn't have to be considered in the incidences that you cited, and that is the issue of overconcentration, right? So none of these things that you're talking about have another one within walking distance. Everyone in CD8, by virtue of the density and the commitment that we've made, has that to consider. And so it's a different thing. And so you don't even want to get out the box and start the clock on the 2 years, where I understand even after trust me, I understand after the 2 years, it's still a slog to actually get a project done.
And having worked in South LA before, I could attest to that fact that, I mean, your 600 units that you're building is on top of the already existing numerous projects that have gone in years past. Well, with that said, I'm a little concerned here, and we've been down this road before. I can't remember, was it maybe a year ago when we talked about letters of commitment from council offices, the requirement of that, and we forego that because we decided that it was trying to delay projects for no good reasons. And I think it's very important that the entire city council moves together as one voice, not as 15 different voices. And I have two big concerns. We do have a huge crisis. We have a crisis at hand. We need to build everywhere. And once my project is accepted here, my 6 projects, when all completed, I'll have about 500 units in my district as well. Unfortunately, they're not. A little less than half are permanent supportive housing, but I have a long ways to go as well, and I think we all need to build. And because of the crisis at hand, I don't know how to say this properly, but I want to see this, and I want to make sure that we pass the entire package as a whole. But I do concede Council District 8 because, I think I got to get to a point where at least I could build half of what you built before I could interject. And there is a thing to say about overconcentration. We don't want to put too many in the same area. We do want to try to spread it out. That's why it's so important to build in districts like mine, Council District 4, Council District 5, as well as Council District 12. And I can't support pulling it out at this point because, one, we have a crisis at hand and we need to build everywhere because this is not a Skid Row problem or a Venice Beach problem or a Hollywood problem. It's a City of LA problem. And two, I want, CD12 and the new member to know I actually want them to understand that I'm trying to help because it is so hard to get to this point. And I was very shocked at all the support that is here, and there's some support that actually came from CD12 as well. It is so difficult. And all the members here could attest to how difficult it is to even get to this point. And this does not even mean it's going to be done just because we give a commitment of funding. So I would, and CD12 could blame it on me because I think every part of the city needs to build because to try to recreate how far this project has come is going to be immensely difficult. So I see it as a way to try to help, the district than hurt, and hopefully it will be perceived that way because it is difficult. Community engagement is difficult.
All right, Mr. Let's Mike Bonin has some more questions, but I just also like to say before you go, Mike, is that I know. Mr. Gibson, I think you reported about a month ago that as of yet, none of the projects approved for HHH funding have actually pulled out or not been able to qualify fully or not be able to put all of their funding stacks together. Have we had anyone pull out so far?
Not today.
So it's unlikely at this point. It could happen, but it's unlikely at this point based on the current
The fair answer is these are very complicated and they're very challenging, and we've worked very hard to try to assist in every manner we can to try to make sure they come online with each project as we move forward and things become even more challenging. But as reported last time, no, they're all still there.
All right.
But more challenges lie ahead, and that includes subsidies and other things.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Bonin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Rue, as well. Let me just start before I ask a question by saying one thing, which I think most people in this room get, but we don't say it enough. Permanent supportive housing is good. Permanent supportive housing is good not just for people who are homeless who will be housed, but permanent supportive housing is good for the neighborhoods where permanent supportive housing goes.
Absolutely.
When you hear objections to permanent supportive housing, and God knows we all have, people say crime will go up, property values will go down.
No.
Let me tell you about Delray. Delray is a community in my district, shares a zip code with Mar Vista, that has been building units and housing people in units since before we approved Triple H. There's 3 projects I can think of right now. Tom Safran has a project, Path Ventures has a project, VCH has a project, all of which have opened in the past 6 years. Property values in Delray, in those neighborhoods, have gone up dramatically. Crime in that neighborhood has gone down. So the reality is that permanent supportive housing is good for the neighborhoods that it goes in. The sort of boogeyman talk ain't real. So now I got a couple questions, and if the developer and CD 12 could come back up, because I'm trying to figure out in the couple different approaches we've heard here if we have a distinction without a difference or if we have a distinction with a pretty dramatic difference. So teasing out on what Mr. Rue asked for the developer, this is a commitment that we're being asked to do is a commitment of funding, so you can acquire, but you still have an entitlement process to go through.
Correct.
And do you know yet which entitlements you would be seeking?
We have a couple of different options.
Okay. And entitlements in the city of Los Angeles, for those of you who are not as fluent in the planning process, that means that's a discretionary item that is going to go through the process, where the community gets to weigh in, where the council office gets to weigh in, and where concessions and trade-offs are made all the time to make things work for community. I think that's important to note. So we've got door number 1 and we've got door number 2. Well, door number 1 is Mr. Rue's proposal. Let's just approve it and move forward.
With opportunities for community input.
Well, I guess it's your door number 1, which is to say, let's make a commitment to do community outreach, which will presumably inform what we seek in the entitlement process, all the sort of stuff that a council member would like to influence in the process.
Correct. We're not going to submit to planning until we get out to the community to get input on the design, the massing, all of that.
Okay. So this is where I'm trying to figure out if it's a distinction without a difference or not. I heard the testimony from CD 12 that you would like an additional month for community input. Is that month for community input meant to shape the project with the idea that we would be approving it at the end of the month, as Mr. O'Farrell has articulated, or is it with the open question of whether or not the project would gain support?
The community input that we're looking for is simply how does the community feel about the size, the scope of the project, and the location that it's at. I can't speak to what the council member will decide to do after that, but that is what we are asking, just the opportunity to be able to do that because we are so new, staffing up, don't really fully understand our community's position on this project.
I get it. So it is it's more of an existential question. His is about how, yours is about if. That's fair. That's perfectly reasonable. That's perfectly reasonable for any new member. I just wanted to be clear on those two things. I just want to note the context this is in. And Mr. Rue, I think, said it perfectly. CD8's a different situation. We all will have a tough time going back to our districts and saying, you had concerns people who surrounded David in a meeting in Sherman Oaks, or people who've come out to a town hall and shouted down the mayor and the police chief. But me, well, that goes without saying. But we plowed through, but we decided to hold off in another district. That's a very, very hard conversation. The other context I think is worth noting is last week we had a controversial discussion, a pull the covers controversial discussion downstairs over permanent supportive housing. And we said because there's an urgent crisis, we need to move forward. And that's what we did. And we had in that situation, a situation where, another member wanted to put it into a delay into a committee. But that delay we were concerned was about not how, but if. So we decided to move forward. And I just think for consistency's sake as a body, it's really hard to not move forward, particularly when all we're doing is saying, you can explore this further. You've got the money on the table to have this conversation. Because if you still have to go through the entitlement process, for the people who think this is saying this project is happening, it's not.
Nope.
Because it's the beginning of the process. For people who are afraid that this project will be happening, that ain't guaranteed either because you've still got the entitlement process to go through.
But if I may,
Yes.
also, in that particular situation that you're referring to, Mr. Bonin, it was Mr. O'Farrell whose district the project was in and had been engaged in extensive community outreach as well.
Right, for 18 months.
Yeah.
For a year and a half.
Right.
So there is a difference in terms of the timeline.
Correct.
As
And
far as
so
community.
I want to make sure that we're having an equal conversation, and I can recognize and appreciate it, but I'm just trying to be respectful to a community engagement process, which listen, I was protested by 100 grammar school kids for the only winter shelter in the San Fernando Valley, and if not for the fact that I had to force a conversation with them to say, listen, because they say, why always in Pacoima? For the entire San Fernando Valley, why always in Pacoima? And it was through that process that I had to mandate, through extensive community engagement, the operating conditions with which they then improved how they operated that facility and eliminated those problems. But it was that extensive community outreach that brought that forward. So I'm just deferential to providing that opportunity because we've all gone through it.
Yeah.
Elementary school kids with protest signs is a pretty hard thing to experience as well. Because they live a block away.
Yeah.
So I can totally appreciate all of that, which is why I'm very concerned about making sure that we assure that opportunity to someone who's been in office 3 weeks.
And I get that. And I'm not unsympathetic to that. It's just there's the entitlement process to go through where I see that happening pretty robustly.
I think there's more reasons that this will get killed for various reasons beyond that. I mean, it's
problematic to frame it that way, though.
But yeah, I mean, there's lots of So.
Okay. So any other comments? All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
One more.
Yes, of course.
What I can say is that Councilmember Lee is committed to the city's goal of housing those experiencing homelessness. 100%. The truth is, CD12, not this council member, not the former council member, not the former council member before that, has not rejected one project. None of them have really come to our community. Unfortunately, Councilmember Lee was just elected a few weeks ago. So again, all we are asking is for a brief period of time to be able to provide outreach, also work with the developer, come up with something that works for the community and the developer and our office. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So colleagues, to me, in either situation, whether it's in 12 or 8, it's fundamentally about outreach. Now, the level of support on balance is very different, and I get that. At least at this moment, the level of support is very different. So here's what I'm going to recommend. I'm going to recommend that we authorize HCID to issue letters of financial commitment for each of the projects identified in Table 2A, with the exception of Florence Avenue Apartments and Sola at 87th Street for further consideration of the letters of financial commitment for a maximum of 4 weeks to allow time for the respective council offices to review and secure community input. I'm going to recommend that in relation to the Topanga Apartments, that there's a report back to this committee in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. We hold that for 2 weeks. Because by then we'll have a pretty good indication on if discussions, talks, negotiations, whatever we may describe them as, are making progress or not. And I think that's more than fair to the developer. And I think that it is, it's just kind of the predicament we're in relation to Mr. Lee being a new council member. But I don't feel comfortable just ignoring his request when he is a colleague who's been in office for 3 weeks. We're also, therefore, by definition, not holding up this possibility. So that's all I'm going to recommend. I hope the developer can agree to those terms right here and now and not say it kills the project if you don't include it in this package right now, because that's not up to 30 days. That's in 2 weeks from today. And I recommend having some hard and fast conversations, possibly even going to the 4th floor right now and talking about it. Because we do need to move these projects forward, but we also have to kind of rise to the occasion of this humanitarian crisis at hand when we have the funding to build supportive housing. So that's what I'm going to recommend for these 2 instances. And this action should not negatively impact these 2 projects.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Can we split the vote? Can we take 2 separate votes, if you don't mind?
And as a point of order, I actually have a motion on the floor.
Okay.
That I'm looking for a second for. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. 2 separate votes, right?
Mr. Harris-Dawson's motion was to support withholding the Florence Avenue Apartments in Sola at 87th for further consideration for a maximum of 4 weeks for community outreach. And that's Mr. Harris-Dawson's motion, and it received a second, so we can vote on that. All in favor? Aye. All right, so that passes unanimously. So then the other one is to hold Topanga Apartments for 2 weeks to report back to this committee on the progress of the outreach and negotiations that Mr. King specified on behalf of our colleague, Mr. Lee. Does that need a second as well? Okay, Ms. Rodriguez seconds. So in favor of that process, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
No.
All right. So let the record reflect that that was voted down, and we'll move the package with the exception of the Florence Avenue Apartments and Sola at 87th for further consideration, and we will approve the others identified in Table 2A. That'll be the order.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, colleagues. So I think I need this board again. All right. All right.
You're free game now.
Yeah, item 4.
We got to build.
Okay, all right, everyone. We have a whole lot, it's after 5, we have a whole lot of other items to consider. Everyone's been very patient, and I thank you for your patience. But that takes us to item 4, I believe. Yeah, we're going to item 4. Please read item 4 into the record, and we do have a public comment on item 4.
Item number 4, City Attorney Report and Ordinance relative to amending the Los Angeles Municipal Code sections 1280 and 1281.
Hey, shh. Hey, everyone. Could we take all conversations outside, please? Thank you.
Item number 4, City Attorney Report and Ordinance relative to amending the Los Angeles Municipal Code sections 12.80 and 12.81 to align the city's shelter crisis regulations with Government Code section 8698.
Thank you. All right, now we do have Yvonne Michelle Autry, who spoke on 1 minute already, and then we have, you want to speak on this item and other multiple items, so if Yvonne Michelle Autry is still here, you have an additional 1 minute. Yvonne Michelle Autry. Okay, yes, thank you. So you have an additional minute on the rest of the items? All right.
Yes, on the record, again, I can't urge you enough. The timeliness is so important. 3 years has lapsed. We need the money allocated right now for those that are most vulnerable, houseless people, homeless people. There are women living in the street in one of the richest cities in the world. That is a shame, okay? A nation is judged by the way that it cares for its veterans and its women. Right? You need to create the housing, stop rediverting the funds, stop robbing the people. 3 years is long enough, and this is bureaucracy. You can just allocate and start to either recreate the housing, or you can start to remodel some of the pre-existing housing downtown. I don't think it should be outsourced. I think that we can recreate housing right here in downtown. Just use the money to create the housing, remove the people from the street that are most vulnerable to the police brutality, okay, that the police are sending to exterminate the homeless so that they're not incriminated. You have the money.
Okay, thank you.
Use the money for the purpose that it was originally allocated.
Thank you.
Stop robbing the people.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, so we've satisfied public comment for items 4, 5, and 8. I'm going to recommend that we move those on consent. That'll be the order since there's no objection. Now we'll go to item number 1. Please read the item, and then we have some public comment cards specific to item number 1.
Item number 1, Los Angeles Housing and Community Investment Department and City Administrative Officer reports relative to the selection of developers for an affordable and supportive housing project at 11010 Santa Monica Boulevard and related actions.
Thank you so much. We have 2 comment cards. One is from Adam Lane, and the other is from Ron. And 1 minute, and if there's Ron here, okay, Adam Lane. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Adam Lane. I'm with the Los Angeles Business Council. I'm excited to stand here today and ask for your support for HCID's recommendation for the development team of Weingart Center and Valued Housing for the 1110 Santa Monica site. I want to thank HCID General Manager Rushmore Cervantes and Assistant General Manager Sean Spear for working together with the LABC and allowing our members to play a critical role throughout this process. For a period of several months, our architects, developers, property owners, and others helped provide feedback to HCID, LADOT, and the Office of Councilmember Koretz with the hopes of a supportive housing site in our backyard. We felt it crucial that as we work to encourage sites across the city, that our neighborhood needed to do its part. The Weingart Center and Valued Housing proposal not only includes a per-unit cost far lower than the average supportive housing project, but Weingart Center's prefabricated construction system would allow the project to be built in half the time. It not only creates necessary housing, but it adds to the aesthetic of the neighborhood. We hope this proposal can serve as a model for what future supportive housing can be. Thank you, and we request your approval.
Thank you, Adam. And Ron, 1 minute.
Hi. As a community member and developer, it is my fervent goal to marry compassion with pragmatism as we put our arms around this multi-layered challenge of providing permanent and supportive housing for those unsheltered in our city. I'm concerned we're not doing enough for those who are currently experiencing homelessness, especially in the West LA area. We waited too long. As it commonly occurs when an acute crisis emerges from a chronic problem, we are at risk of simply filling in cracks with putty from a dam that is actually bursting. In other words, we are throwing money at a problem that may need to be addressed more thoughtfully. I think by working together, we can find a better solution in which we can build a lot more units in the area, redirecting the limited funds allocated for this less than ideal site. I'm eager to partner with the city. My organization is, and to provide $1 million
Thank you.
in additional funding to help relocate and to come up with a solution
Thank you,
to
sir.
help with
Thank
this
you.
issue.
Appreciate that. Okay, and I understand we have Jim Bickhart here from the office of Paul Koretz, Council District 5.
Yeah, my name is Jim Bickhart. I'm a consultant for Councilmember Koretz. I'm here to represent him regarding item 1, which I believe is what we're talking about. He is in support of this award of a bid and the eligibility for HHH funding for this very innovative and I guess it's the prototype for the faster, cheaper, more innovative model of HHH housing. We did a separate RFP. We worked with HSID to do a separate RFP on it ahead of the big package that I believe you're dealing with for the same kinds of projects. And from what HSID has told us, they're very happy with the proposal that they've chosen, and we hope that the committee will send it forward to the council. A couple of quick notes. We did consult with community people and got input from them for the RFP, and but we're also looking forward to having the chosen developers go back out into the community and work with them very closely as the process goes forward. And one final note, referring to something that Mr. Bonin mentioned. About 2 years ago, the council office worked with ITA and a team of researchers from USC to do a research report on the impact of affordable housing on local adjacent property values. And we found that like 98% of the cases, they had no negative effect whatsoever. And we actually have a written report that we can make available to anybody who would like to see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim. That is certainly the case in every area where I have a permanent supportive housing project as well. All right, so colleagues, what I'd like to do, thank you, is, boy, do I need that, unless anyone has any comments to make, well, I recommend that we adopt the CA report and receive and file the HSID report. Yep, that'll be the order. Thank you so much. And before we go to, we'll go to item 10 now, and I understand, we have one comment card, but let's read the item. We'll have the comment card and then Mr. Bonin. Item 10.
Item number 10, Homeless Strategy Committee transmittal relative to the shared housing initial findings and recommendations.
Thank you. And we have Antonio Moreno. Antonio Moreno on this item. Is Antonio Moreno here? So Mr. Bonin, take it away, and if Mr. Moreno shows up, then we'll have him speak as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the staff that prepared the report. I have been, I think since 2014, talking about the importance of shared housing as one of our large menu of solutions that we need to get people off the street and house them as quickly as possible. And it has been a long time trying to get a new idea through a bureaucratic system. And while this is a step forward, this is not sufficiently progress for me. We just spent a ton of money, allocated a ton of money for a few thousand units, which is great. All of that is worth doing. But permanent supportive housing is not the needed solution or intervention for everybody who's homeless, and it is not an expenditure of that amount is not what we need to be making for every single person who is homeless. There are other people, maybe they are newly homeless under different circumstances, who do not need a single unit with wraparound services that would benefit from getting in off the street quickly into a shared housing unit, many of whom actually would prefer or thrive in a more social situation where they have peer support and that sort of a stable support. In the shared housing that I have seen, one of the organizations I work with in my district, they get 50% of the people off the street within 40% of the people within 2 days. I mean, that's just a phenomenal track record, and we need to be moving people faster. And the model that I have seen, and the model I'm closest to is Culverd City based on the west side, Self-Help and Recovery Exchange. I gave them $50,000 a couple years ago and said, house as many people as you can in Venice as quickly as you can. And within a couple months, they housed like 30-something people. And this model doesn't fit into the usual funding streams, and so it's hard for departments and agencies to figure out how to make it work. But for the human being who is no longer on the sidewalk and has a warm bed and a roof over their head, it makes a significant difference. So I've been pushing for us to do this. The issue sort of got punted for a couple years through a few funding streams. And this recommendation comes back, and there was a stronger recommendation before it made it all the way through the process. I think the CAO was giving it a stronger recommendation for expenditure than the Homeless Strategy Committee, and I'm disappointed that the Homeless Strategy Committee walked it back a little bit. The recommendation as it is let LASA do an RFP and incorporate shared housing into rapid rehousing. That's okay. I'm not objecting to that, but that is not exactly what I'm looking for. I'm not looking to fit this into the LASA process, which LASA is doing some amazing things, but on this, I don't think they've got the religion on this, and I don't think that it's going to work very quickly with them. So this report is what this report is. It's the recommendations. We'll have this discussion really when we get into the debate about HAP funds. But Mr. Price and I each have motions in asking for an allocation for shared housing that would be different than this. I want shared housing dollars in my district tied specifically to my bridge housing, so that we can get people through the bridge housing more quickly, and so that those 154 beds can be made available to 400, 500 people in a year as opposed to 154. So I just want to underscore that again, that this is a good start, not far enough, and it can't be the only way that we do shared housing, and that there's a discussion to be had in a couple weeks for Mr. Price and I about how to do it a little bit differently in our respective districts. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bonin. Any comments, colleagues? No? All right, so I move that we approve this item without objection. That will be the order, which takes us to item 7. I'm sorry. I'm on my number 7, but we're talking about number 11. Believe me, there's a lot of paperwork up here.
Item number 11, categorical exemption from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15269C and statutory exemption under public resources under Section 21080B4 as a specific action necessary to mitigate an emergency, as set forth in the notice of exemption attached to the council file, and motion Krikorian Rue relative to approving funds in the amount of $2,300,000 for the development of a bridge housing facility for the property located at 13160 Raymer Street, Los Angeles, California, 91605.
Thank you. And for the record, this location is in Council District 2, not Council District 14. So I understand there was a technical amendment on this item, and I believe Ms. Sanchez is going to make that technical improvement. Chavez. I wrote Sanchez on my paper, but I know it's Chavez. Sorry about that.
Good afternoon, Yolanda Chavez with the CAO's office. So a brief amendment to the motion. The first one is to authorize the city administrative officer to enter into a contract with Hope of the Valley Rescue Mission in the amount of $2 million to support the rehabilitation of the building at 13160 Raymer Street to establish 85 bridge housing beds for individuals who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. And the second recommendation to the motion is to approve the use of $300,000 for project contingencies and project management associated with the Bridge Home project located at 13160 Raymer Street to be administered as follows. Instruct the Department of Public Works, Bureau of Engineering to report contingency and project management expenses to the CAO on a quarterly basis and instruct the CAO to review these expenses and recommend reimbursement to BOE through the construction projects report. And I will give a copy to the clerk.
Thank you. So we're clear on those amendments? Yep. Thank you, Ms. Chavez. And so with that said, we'll approve the motion as amended without objection. And there's no objection, so that shall be the order. And we'll now go to item 7.
Item number 7, motion Price Wesson O'Farrell Bonnet relative to the Chicago Homeless Prevention Program and the New York Home-Based Program with recommendations and cost estimates to implement a similar program in Los Angeles, including one-time cash assistance, utility bill assistance, and supportive services.
Thank you so much. We don't have any comment cards on this item, so what I want to just do is talk about how crucial I believe that focus on prevention is. So I commend Mr. Price for introducing this motion, and I'd like to explore more programs that would prevent people from falling into homelessness. That's why I introduced a motion today to explore cash assistance for seniors to help seniors stay housed, and also the impetus behind the Poverty Summit, which we're having this Friday, is to come up with programs, ideas, goals, strategies, actions to lift people out of poverty and prevent people from falling into homelessness. The two are directly linked. We should do everything we can to end poverty, to address the issues and fundamental causes of poverty and ensure people can stay in their homes. So I would like to strongly recommend that we approve this motion. That'll be the order. Thank you. All right. So that then brings us to item 3.
Item number
item 3. Okay, thank you.
Item number 3, Proposition HHH Administrative Oversight Committee transmittal relative to recommendations for the Proposition HHH Housing Challenge request for proposals.
Thank you. So we do have some public comment. We have John Malloy here. John Malloy. John Malloy, followed by Guillermo Torres. And I know Guillermo spoke earlier as well, but just on the one item. And then we have Lionel Mares. Lionel Mares. Are any of these 3 individuals here? John Malloy, Guillermo Torres, or Lionel Mares? It looks like we are. So we'll go ahead and have Ms. Chavez come up again, and Ben Winter. And then it looks like we have Sean Spear from HSID and Michael Henricks from City Attorney's Office. Please step forward. On the HHH Housing Challenge.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So Ben Winter, Chief Housing Officer for the Office of Mayor Eric Garcetti. And I'm also joined here with Jennifer Kim, the Program Director for the Housing Innovation Challenge, along with, she's one of the 3 staff that we've hired to help HSID LA kind of administer this program and think about housing innovation more broadly with the support of the United Way. Also, we're joined here with Sean and Michael. And we're excited to be here today to go over the results of the Triple H Housing Challenge and to bring them to this committee for your consideration. We have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm not sure if that was loaded up. If not, no worries. We can just do it from memory.
We think we have it.
Well, we'll go ahead and get started. As you can recall, we brought to this committee a few times the actual RFP, but just to review, this RFP itself, well, I think was an innovative process. As you just went through the process, for the regular traditional program, we really only fund projects. This is the first time that we opened up the door to allow for enterprise level funding and to give an even earlier commitment than the conditional approval that you all just moved today for the third round. Before that, to a reservation of HHH funds for unique development strategies that are aimed at producing 1,000 units within 2 years through innovative alternative ways to finance or construct supportive housing. And so the review panel that kind of came together, as we pull it up, I can describe it just orally. Okay. We've had quite a robust review panel to review all of the proposals, and incorporated city staff like the CAO's office, HCID LA, Helmy, I think, who was here before, was also on that review panel. We had the mayor's office consultant staff that are with HCID LA, Jen. We had Joan Ling, the professor from UCLA, representatives from the county, SCAMP, and others, and William Paveo, who's the former director of the state's California Tax Credit Allocation Committee. So we really did have a robust review panel that brought together a lot of experience and expertise. Then there was a design subcommittee as well. As you can recall in the rubric, there was a design portion, and that was headed up by the mayor's chief design officer, Christopher Hawthorne. He was here but had to leave because it's getting a little late. Also had Deborah Weintraub from the city engineering department, Julie Eisenberg, Milton Curry, who is the dean of the architecture school at USC, and Sharon Johnston, an architect for Johnston Markley. So we had about 19 applications that were received for this HHH challenge. 4 of the applications failed basic threshold review, such as not providing sufficient documentation. 1 application was actually withdrawn from the scoring process. 2 of the applications were disqualified because of eligibility requirement problems. And 6 applications scored below the required 75 points that are required for actually being funded or recommended for funding. So that left 6 projects that did receive more than 75 points. Some of the reasons for the scores, here we are. Some of the reasons for the low scores that did not reach 75 points, now obviously we can't get into specific details on every project per the guidance from city attorney, but in general, some of the reasons were that the proposals lacked sufficient innovation or an ability to scale and replicate. Remember, that's one of the key things here is we're trying to find out-of-the-box ways to do this work so we can grow it with additional resources down the road. Some proposals also gave unrealistic construction timelines or construction costs and actually lacked a lot of detailed information for the panel to actually determine feasibility. So, for instance, not having an actual development budget, only looking at construction budgets rather than the full-scale development. So, as we go over so the 6 projects that were 6 proposals that were recommended to be funded that are before you today, they're actually development strategies. Recall that proposals could have put forward individual projects for funding or a development strategy without site control just yet. And so all 6 were development strategies that were recommended to be funding. That represents a total of 1,001 units, 975 permanent supportive housing units. That represents more than 1,200 bedrooms. There is one of the proposals is a shared housing typology.
Ben, could you say, so it's 1,001 units,
Total, and that's inclusive of the manager units that are on
Okay,
on
and
the
how many permanent supportive housing out of that?
975.
975, okay.
But one of the proposals is shared housing, so that's 2 bedrooms per unit. We'll get into the details of every specific one going forward.
And that's in addition to what we just approved with item 2.
That's right. My full stats, so I try to keep a tally as well. Notwithstanding the projects that are kind of held for 4 weeks, if we kind of include the whole kit and caboodle, my tally is a total of 151 supportive housing projects in the entire pipeline. That's inclusive of Triple H and non-Triple H.
And what's your number as far as total units out of that?
Total units is 10,720 total units. Of those, 8,107 are supportive housing.
Okay.
And that is inclusive of the non-Triple H projects. So, just to put a pause on this, we've got, since voters approved Triple H in November 2016, 15 supportive housing developments have been completed with almost 900 units total. 29 other supportive housing projects are actually under construction right now as we speak. So we are seeing the full pipeline move forward. And with this final RFP, that will bring us over 10,000 units. But remember, the goal here is to get to 10,000 supportive units. Right. We're not there yet, but we still have some time to produce additional supportive housing units through the non-Triple H pipeline.
When we're talking less than 1,500 now, based on the overall voter intent from 2016, that's not bad.
It's not bad. In fact, we always said Triple H was meant to more than triple our annual production from 300 to 1,000 units per year. So that increment is 7,000 units. Looking at everything together with Triple H, we're just shy of 7,000 supportive housing units, but definitely over that when we include the affordable units on site. So back to here it is. That's great. It's up and running. So again, over just 1,001 units. The TDC here in this portfolio is $370,000 per unit, which was about the traditional pipeline is about 50% higher at 511,000. If you do the per unit TDC, by bedroom instead of unit, it's $292,000 per bedroom. The Triple H subsidy that's being asked here is on average $123,000 per unit, which is just shy of $100,000 per bedroom. The thing that I like to, Jen right now is going to go over the specific recommended proposals, but the way I like to look at these 6 is it's kind of split right down the middle. Half of this $120 million are being recommended for strategies that are totally outside of the traditional model, the traditional tax credit model. The other half are utilizing the traditional tax credit model, but with slight tweaks that we think could help facilitate modular construction and other kind of financing that hopefully, if successful, we can scale up in the traditional programs going forward. So some of them aren't totally out of the box, but some of them are. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jen to go over all the proposals. Do want to pause. Most of the 6 proposed winners have at least one representative here in the room, and unless they've all had to leave. But if you have specific questions for the developers, they are here if you would like.
Okay.
So here's a snapshot of the recommended applications. We can look at the bottom row just for the totals and averages. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties, so this is kind of the best we can do with the PowerPoint. Hopefully you can read it like that. So the total amount requested is $120 million we're recommending for 975 units of supportive housing. At an estimated per unit subsidy of $123,000 and an estimated TDC per unit of $370,000. And then I can go through each proposal in more detail.
Okay.
So we're recommending funding at the $10 million level for Restore Neighborhoods LA for 95 units of supportive housing across 5 sites. And Sometimes innovation is just simplification, and that's exactly what RNLA is doing. They've simplified all aspects of development and finance through a coordinated one-stop shop model, bringing together all of the different actors of development and vertically integrating them. So the developer, lender, architect, and service provider. In addition to that, they're using a single source of funding through Genesis LA for pre-construction or for acquisition, pre-construction, pre-development, and construction, which really takes out a lot of the costs associated with a number of various funding sources. They already have one project acquired or one site acquired in CD13.
I should know this, but where is it?
It is, John, what is the address?
405 Westlake. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard, I've been briefed. Yeah, I've been briefed on this. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And then 2 sites in escrow in CD8 and CD9. The total development cost is estimated at $200,000 per unit, and construction timeline projected at about 12 months.
It should note that one of the reasons why this is such a low TDC is that this is kind of smaller scale infill development strategies, like garden-style apartments or bungalow apartments that we haven't seen constructed in decades. So that means they don't need to provide parking podiums with the concrete parking podiums, which can lower costs.
And since these are scattered sites, for lack of a better term in my head, what sort of services are nearby in terms of the wraparound model or the supportive services?
Yeah, each of the developers has a service provider partner who's going to be working and case managing with all of the residents. There's also an on-site manager at each of the developments. So just to ensure that all the residents are getting those wraparound services.
Okay.
And one of the requirements of the RFP is that this is supportive housing, so every development must have, as per the ordinance of Triple H, must have space on site for the provision of supportive services.
Thank you.
So our next recommendation is for Daylight Community Development, funding at the level of $23.8 million, separated into 2 tranches. The second tranche being paid back after 3 years through privately placed capital. This will support 132 units of supportive housing across 3 sites. They're using a non-tax credit modular supportive housing model. The steel frame shipping containers that they're proposing to use can be built faster and cheaper, bringing that TDC down to about $288,000 and a construction timeline of 8 months. Also, the simplified capital stack leads to lower costs. As far as sites, they have one in escrow in CD10 and 2 sites finalizing purchase and sale agreements in CD1 and CD6. Next, we are requesting funding for a very experienced group of developers who have partnered together, Abode, Mercy, and LA Family Housing. We are recommending $40 million for 360 units of supportive housing across a minimum of 4 sites, up to 6. While the TDC here is not as low as some of the other proposals, they're using, or they've requested an interesting way to finance modular development. So $5 million of the $40 million requested will be used or will be set aside in a revolving construction loan fund that they can use for in-factory work and modular deposits. And this could potentially open up a new way that other developers could replicate to realize the cost and time savings that are possible with modular. That's a problem that affordable housing developers in particular have grappled with because they don't have access to the capital, that much capital early on to make those deposits.
And what's the main reason, since it is, it's modular, yes? So what's the main reason that this cost per unit goes up significantly over the previous? What's the main reason? Is it land acquisition?
Remember that about half of these projects are kind of more on the really outside of the box, outside of the traditional model. This is on more towards the traditional. This is using low-income housing tax credit programs. It's larger buildings, end up looking more like the kind of traditional multifamily development.
Because of the funding requirements?
The funding requirements and just the development strategy, having like a more traditional, larger style multifamily developments. Should also just note, pause on the Factory OS, this particular manufacturer is probably the most local of all of the proposed manufacturers for prefab in these proposals. Although it's California based, but up in the Bay Area using labor from the Carpenters Union up in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Our next recommendation is for Bridge Housing. We're recommending $19.7 million for 140 units of supportive housing across 2 sites. The real innovation here is 2-pronged. So first, with the building system that they're proposing, it's a light gauge steel building technology that is manufactured off-site and then can be quickly assembled on-site. They're also pursuing Opportunity Zone funding, which has not yet been implemented by affordable housing developers. It's been a real challenge, but we think they'll be successful, and that could unlock this whole other source of affordable housing and homeless housing financing and leverage.
In general, or with this specific project in terms of Opportunity Zone?
The idea is in general, so that other developers can sort of follow their model. So this is, and in all the proposals we were looking at, we looked for models that were replicable and scalable.
Okay.
And Bridge is targeting CD 9 and 10 primarily, and of course they're looking for sites that are located in opportunity zones, and each of their projects will be, they're intended for transition age youth experiencing homelessness.
And families, right?
And families, yep. Our next recommendation is Flyaway Homes at $19.5 million for 195 units across 5 sites. This is a shared housing model, so 195 units translates to about 390 beds or residents. The Flyaway model primarily relies on private capital through private debt and social impact equity. And so about 70% private financing and 30% Triple H, which again really simplifies the capital stack. They're using steel and wood modular, cutting construction time to less than 12 months. And their proposal aims to streamline or systematize the process to finance, acquire land, design, manufacture, and construct units, which reduces the hard and soft costs that can bring the TDC down to about $288,000 per unit. Our last recommendation is Brilliant Corners, $7 million for 53 units across 2 sites, or a minimum of 2 sites. This developer is looking at underutilized non-residential properties that can be rapidly converted to permanent supportive housing. So looking at properties like churches and storage facilities, and because the adaptive reuse can reduce the time and cost of construction compared to new construction, they're projecting a TDC of about $386,000 and construction time of less than 12 months as well. And they have 2 sites under negotiation in CD6 and CD8.
What types of structures, what types of uses are currently or were in the structures that will be adaptively reused?
So they were looking at a church and a storage facility, and so either they are vacant or they're obsolete. In the case of the church, the congregation is moving, so because a lot of the infrastructure is already there, they can quickly transition these into residential units.
So this image isn't an image of one of the buildings?
No.
That's what threw me. I thought, that looks
Oh, no, I'm
different
sorry.
than
This is just
adaptive
one of
reuse.
their other
Okay.
developments.
Thank you.
Yeah. This just kind of consolidates the sites update, so you can see at a glance, there's one site acquired, several in escrow, 2 that are finalizing negotiations, and 2 under negotiation. So the developers are moving very quickly along, aggressively looking for sites. And we'll go to the timeline. After this committee meeting, we'll go to council, and following council action, the developers and HZLA will enter into a master loan agreement or MOU to be determined what exactly it will be called. We keep going back and forth on that. And after those documents are executed, the developers will have a 4-month period to gain site control on all of these projects. Following that period of 4 months, they will receive a conditional approval. That will last for a year, and then they'll have until latest October 2022 to complete construction.
And once those MOUs are drafted, will they come back to council for approval?
So the master loan agreement just lays out kind of the general terms of their proposal, not the project-specific agreements, just kind of holding the developers to what they proposed in their applications, and mostly going over the development strategies. So those terms, the project-level agreements, we hope to package that in to the master loan agreement so that we can move as quickly as we can. So once those sites get acquired, we can set up those specific agreements and get those docs executed quickly so that the developers can move along in their process.
I think if, as you recalled in the RFP that that the council and mayor approved and passed, it has a very aggressive timeline to acquire site control and move them through the process. So as you can see, the conditional approval for the regular Triple H program is 2 years. Here it's 1 year. And in the traditional Triple H proposal, once projects are ready to break ground, they actually have a maximum of 2 years to expend all the Triple H funding. Here it's at maximum of 18 months for the construction period. And because this is an even earlier commitment than the conditional approval, we only gave them 4 months in the RFP to actually acquire site control and move them through the process to get funded. And again, these are the maximum times. As Jen said, a lot of folks are already looking aggressively at trying to acquire sites and move this along because of the aggressive timeline. So therefore, it's very possible that some projects may be able to skip the conditional approval altogether, especially those that don't need to kind of go get tax credits and acquire other state funding. So that some of them may be able to skip that period altogether. So in the transmittal before you does request a number of upfront authorities to HZLA to work with the city attorney, the CA, and the bond council to make sure that all projects actually are able to be funded under Triple H, and to move them through the process as quickly as possible.
In relation to the 4-month timeline, what are the consequences, or what happens if they're not acquired within that 4-month timeline, if the properties?
Well, according to our RFP and the regulations that the council and mayor have approved, then that's it. Their reservation is over, and we're not.
What's the expectation just to move fast?
Right. So the reservation period does not, right, we're not issuing general obligation bonds on the reservation, right? This is an earlier commitment than a conditional approval. So in the event that the developers cannot gain site control, technically that money would be, that reservation just goes away, and we'd have additional funds to kind of maybe put out to a traditional call for projects, or if this body would like to extend that period, you may. I think that's up to the discretion of the council and mayor.
You can report back if that becomes a necessity. Right?
Sure.
So I don't want to, I have questions, but you might have some more presenting to do, so have at it.
One thing that we didn't mention in the next steps, I think we're committed to, these are all 6 very different strategies, right? And there's going to be a lot of learning that can happen across the different development teams. So I think the intent of all of us is to kind of create a cohort and an open learning environment for these 6 teams. And I don't want to say developers because they're not just developers. These are teams that actually have service providers and MOUs with property managers and everybody else. So our goal is to, as we kind of work through these different ways to fund, that we're going to have regular convenings with all 6 so we can learn from each other and scale.
How about the covenants? Are they 55 years?
Yes, that's a requirement of the RFP,
I mean, it's
of course.
city law too.
Course,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
All right. And so in the overall presentation, it's very exciting, first of all, so congratulations. What do you think, if you had a crystal ball in front of you, clearly you're optimistic that they'll move forward. You feel pretty solid with your vetting process. What's the timeline, do you think, that we'll have these? I mean, obviously still have to have site control on the remaining ones with the exception of the one. What are we looking at in terms of getting them built and occupied? 2 years, 3 years, less?
So that's...
They have less, and they have to build 18 months from the time that they get their conditional approval.
That's correct.
So
the final approval, yeah.
the final approval, yeah.
Okay.
So the maximum here in our window, if we keep to schedule, the very maximum allowable time is October 2022.
Okay.
But of course, everybody here, is shooting for much earlier than that.
Right, right. I mean, I think your team especially is charged with accommodating their, them getting done, right? So, okay.
And the one thing it's not in this presentation, but as part of that United Way grant, we are beefing up the staff to help expedite all Triple H projects, including these 1,000 units. And so we just had our first Executive Directive 13 meeting. Was it today? Yeah, today was a very busy day with all different departments. We had the fire department there, power side, LA Water, the water side of the equation, DBS, planning, and we kind of rolled out a new project management tracking system where we can better facilitate problems across different departments.
That's great.
Yeah, and with that group, the ideal is to actually target looking directly at projects as they encounter challenges and really convening the group to problem solve and figure out how to bust through those impediments.
Mm-hmm. Terrific. All right, Mr. Rue, Mr. Bonin, any questions or thoughts about this?
No, I'm okay with the way it is.
Yeah, I'm glad to see us moving forward with different approaches and different ideas. The crisis is big enough, the city's big enough, there's 15 council districts, there's so many different populations of homelessness that, we should be trying everything. And we can see what works and what doesn't. I'm glad to see shared housing in here. To continue my ongoing plug for shared housing. This is an example of how shared housing doesn't fit into one model, because shared housing in this case is long-term. Shared housing can also be transitional. If you have a house and it's got 4 bedrooms, you could do 8 people, then that's a different model. So, but glad to see it.
Well, since my colleague spoke out, I want to echo his comments and say yes, agreed on all of it. I'm very excited about all these different innovative programs. I mean, some I'm more excited than others. Others I have more questions about. But at this point, it's a matter of let's move this forward. And there's plenty of time for us to vet it through, see what works, see what doesn't. That's the whole point of innovation, right? So while I don't, maybe some of them I'm not 1,000% in agreement. It's a crisis at hand, and we need to move this. We need to move all projects forward. All ideas has to be on the table, and and thank you for all the hard work that you've done, and look forward to hearing more about this later.
I did want to say, we forgot to mention, we also have an external evaluator that is following this process. It's Apt Associates. It's funded through the HPRI program. It's nice to know that we'll have an external evaluator that can actually see what does work and what doesn't. So it's not just the city coming back and patting ourselves on the back.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly add, I think that some of the ideas that came out of the responses actually were ones that the department had been thinking about sort of in the abstract. So I think it's a real good test bed for us to see how we can negotiate some of the terms that would be able to favor, for instance, private equity coming into deals that would be otherwise non-tax credit deals. So it's very exciting for us in that way.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm a huge believer in expediting all this, and my office works very closely with your team already. So occasionally we'll lean in just to, check in, and if we feel that there needs some sort of council process, we'll request it of you. But we're supportive of these innovative approaches, and if anything, I have regret that we didn't do something sooner. But it's all good because moving forward, we can certainly ramp this up. When you talk about $200,000-$300,000 per unit, then the definition, or by extension, we're going to get more permanent supportive housing out of that, clearly. So that's a great thing. A couple of things that I want to say, Mr. Bonin and Mr. Rue, unless you have anything else to add. Just in as much as most of these concepts have not secured sites, I encourage the selected developers to look at the affordable housing opportunity sites and other city-owned sites for development for permanent supportive housing, not to be excluded in this process, this innovative process. To the extent possible, HCID should expedite the RFP process for city-owned sites to align with the development timelines for the selected challenge proposals. So I think before, my recommendations would be as follows. Yeah. So we would like to adopt the recommendations as amended and I'm going to read this, to ensure that the city attorney is involved in the preparation of the MOUs and that any changes to the amounts would come back to council. Ensure that once the site control has been secured for specific projects within the proposed 180 days and HCID deems projects financially feasible, that any funding recommendations and related actions come to council for approval. Instruct HCID and CEO to report on these projects once they're ready for a future project expenditure plan. Add a new recommendation to instruct the GM of HCID to report to council with bi-monthly updates on the challenge proposals. And another new recommendation, instruct the GM of HCID and CAO to transmit all challenge-related actions directly to council. And delete recommendations F, G, and H as currently written, as these would be addressed in the amended recommendations or at a later time. And for the record, the detailed language will be provided to the clerk as well. And that's all I have on this. Without objection, those recommendations, are you amenable? Yes, Ben.
So if this body would like to have every project come back to council for individual project level approval and therefore not provide HCID with upfront delegated authority to move projects through the process fast, then this body may want to consider extending that 4-month reservation period for the Triple H loan, because already that is very aggressive and projects won't be able to, it's just not feasible. It may not.
Why don't we not disrupt that process, because I certainly don't want to slow anything down. And what would be your recommendation then to meet halfway, so we can still, in other words, exert oversight, but certainly not get in the way or slow anything down?
So anytime if a project would need to come back to council committee, I would recommend at the very least extending that 4-month reservation period to 6 months.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, actually, only from your 6 recommendations, actually, the 3rd recommendation of instructing HCID and CEO to report on these projects once they are ready for future project expenditure plan, I'm fine with that. I'm also fine with instructing the general manager of HCID to report to City Council on a bi-monthly updates on the challenge proposals. But the other 4 recommendations, I think it'll only delay the process. I mean, I spoke to the mayor's office. They think that these recommendations might delay the process by 6 to 8 weeks. I actually spoke to one of the challenge grant winners who said that they actually think it's 4 to 6 weeks, and 4 to 6 months. And I actually agree, because sometimes some of these items where you want us to come back to council, I mean, we could be on recess, we could, I think it creates unnecessary delays, and I think the mere fact of them reporting back and any time we could call the departments to come and report to us or discuss with us, or we could give our concerns, I think is a good enough opportunity. And if there is a big concern, we could introduce a motion at any time to do anything.
Let's have the CLA come up and explain. Yeah, the intent certainly is not to slow it down, but to fulfill our duty for oversight. And we talk with the mayor's office on a regular basis as well, Mr. Rue, in crafting these instructions. Yes.
Ivania Salvador with the CLA's office. The CLA at the AOC committee did vote no on this. Primarily, we are in support of the challenge. First, let me make that clear. But Sharon felt that there was nothing to review here, that the council wouldn't have an opportunity of redoing its due diligence if we hadn't looked at these projects specifically. When you look at the projects that are before you, several of them don't have site control or even indicate where these addresses are going to be. And having this go forward all the way through the process without council, not knowing where these projects are, was sort of a concern to her. In general, we're always talking about the community engagement and having that process, and I think not knowing where these projects are located could be an issue at some point. What we're recommending or proposing, I think, was just letting the MOU process move ahead with the city attorney involved, and then at some point when all the projects are ready, that's when they come back to council and let us know what the site control, where they're located, how much it's going to cost, all sort of the real details. This is actually streamlining the process. They would only have to come back once to council where people would know where these projects are rather than several times. In addition, I think what we would propose is that by saying that these projects, that the CAO and the HSED department report directly to council, we are not looking for them to go through the AOC process or the COC process, which really cuts out a month or two. So again, our intent is to also streamline these, but make sure that we are in the process and know exactly what these projects are going to look like in the end.
So how much time are we adding to the process with this?
This is Ben. I think if just to be prudent, I think that you should just extend the 4-month reservation period for 2 months so that you developers have another 2 months to secure council approval for the individual projects. 2 months, hopefully it doesn't take that long to secure council approval, but we all have seen sometimes agendas are very long and things need to be put off. Sometimes we don't have quorum, sometimes we have a holiday. So I think to be prudent, we should just extend it from 4 to 6 months if this body would like individual projects to come back for individual.
I feel strongly that addressing homelessness and housing is the #1 priority of the City Council and the City of LA, the Mayor's Office, the City Council. I just don't want to give up our fiduciary responsibility. And we can also waive right out of committee and go right to council for a quick vote. Once we know that the packages are solid, I don't imagine any delay whatsoever. And I'm certainly not a committee chair that holds things in committee and sits on them and lets them die, or even supports delays. So I like your recommendation, Ben. I think it's fair and it's a working relationship, and it still gives us I think, as I said, the oversight responsibility that I think that we need to not sacrifice. But Mr. Bonin, you.
So I'm just trying. Well, I have 2 questions. Let me ask the other question first, because the second one is the one you're talking about. The first one is, and this is not a diss on the city attorney, this is a diss on lawyers generally, I guess, is how long does the MOU preparation process take?
So we've said we're only going to allow for 2 months. That's also in the RFP that the City Council Mayor approved, which is very aggressive, and so therefore a lot of work has already been underway.
Yes, and I'm actually the one drafting the MOUs, so I can let you know that they're already being shared internally within the city family. We're getting some comments. One of the reasons Jen sort of tried to explain, there's the MOU name, Master Loan Agreement name. That's based on comments from the Housing Department's accounting office. Having 2 loan agreements covering the same amount of money is potentially a problem. But anyway, the point is we're working on that now. We're coming up with a template where essentially the project-specific information will be an exhibit to it, which is a lengthy term sheet outlining exactly how it will work on a particular project, hopefully to make this streamlined. I think the drafts will be ready to circulate to the other developers fairly soon, within a couple weeks.
Right after council approval.
Yeah, and so I think October, November was the time frame laid out here for actually having those executed, and from where I stand, that's perfectly doable.
If you manage to make a government MOU reviewed by lawyers an expedited process, that will be the greatest innovation of all. I say that I'm married to a lawyer. I've hired many of them.
Let's hope the developers' lawyers are as quick as the city attorney is.
Well, it's also a concern.
Yes.
I mean, that also is a concern. On the process you're explaining, Ben, is there a way, at what point does the council office weigh in that?
I mean, really, every one of these developer proposals should be, so as part of the RFP, there is 5 points awarded to community outreach and strategy. And so part of that is you need to be working with all stakeholders engaged in this process, including the council office. So they should be working with the council offices now, frankly, and it sounds like some of them have already reached.
Yeah, but for that, you're saying take the 4-month window, extend it to 6 months, right?
If they need to come back for additional council approval for individual projects.
So is it possible for, if the council office is okay with it from the get-go, to say we're good and move it even sooner? Does it need 6 months? Does it need 4 months?
So yeah, I mean, if projects are ready to go earlier, we could definitely come back before that. So maybe not all of them are ready, at 4 months. I think some of them already have site control, so they may be able to come back immediately, within the first 2 weeks or within the first
So if
month.
something's ready to go in 3 weeks and David's fine with it and it's in his district, it can start moving. It doesn't have to wait for the end of either the 4 or the 6 months.
Yes, but...
That's true, though. I would just interject, though, that the part of the issue, though, is that with our regular call for projects process, there's sort of a set timeline. All the deals are coming forward at once for their commitments. I think our mission really would be to move when the developers are ready to move.
Right.
So if, in fact, that would translate to kind of multiple transmittals for each of these, for each site that then gets identified, might create a challenge for us to be able to process regularly.
How many ultimate total sites are we talking about? Because we're not talking about dozens and dozens of transmittals, are we? We are. Okay.
About 22.
22 in all for the entire innovation? Smaller bundles.
So I have an idea. What if we split the baby in half? Because my biggest concern is once we actually have measurable change in the crisis of homelessness, then yes, I think we could have more time to tinker. But right now, we just need projects to be online immediately. So how about for your amendment, Mr. Chair, involving something what Councilmember Baumann said and what you said. So basically, ensure that the city attorney is involved in preparation of the MOU and any changes to the amount will come back to council, but giving it an actual sunset where if council has so many, weeks or months to hear it, otherwise, because this is all going through AOC and COC. So it's not like no eyes are seeing this. And technically during this whole time, they should be working with the council office that the project's going to be in.
Right, and what we're proposing is that it not go through AOC and COC, and that way
Right.
it would be saving that portion of it and going directly to the committee and council for.
Yeah,
but the whole projects are already. I mean, the gist of the global scheme of the project's already been vetted through.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just a finer point. And when one of these sites get identified, and if it's in my district, I would assume they would be working with my office, right?
Mm-hmm. And perhaps we can sort of build upon your idea that if we're doing essentially biweekly reports on the projects, then you raise an issue at committee, then we can pull it and have that conversation.
Right. So if there could be a backstop like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Mr. I'm not talking about slowing anything down, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm talking about exerting oversight because that's kind of our job as council, and I don't want to give that up. I don't want to sacrifice that. And also, these projects wouldn't go through all of the committees.
No, just this committee.
Just this committee, not the.
It's HHH committee,
Yeah.
so this would only come to these committee.
So, yeah, I mean.
What about if we did have a sunset?
A sunset?
I mean, not a sunset, but if it's not heard by committee or council.
But it's going to be heard by committee and council. There's not going to be a delay.
No, I'm sure if the project is in certain areas, and I think the overall problem here is if the council member has the will to do it, then there's going to be no delays. But if there is no will, then there could be delays. So what I'm trying to say is this needs to be a citywide approach, and I think we need to give the authority to make sure, especially for these innovative programs, to push it forward.
I think we are. I'm not in disagreement with you on that at all. And I think Ben's recommendation of up to every 6 months is just fine, and we'll crank these through, but I don't want to sacrifice a last look by this committee, and I think it's a very reasonable approach. But if you're opposed, just be opposed.
Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Bonnet, I don't know how you feel, but I think we feel pretty good with this relationship and these recommendations.
Mayor's office is good with this? We certainly do, defer to this body in the route that you'd like to take for this. I just, if we have to come back for individual projects to council, it may result in a longer timeline. And if that's the choice of this body, we just need to give the development teams that flexibility, because what we've asked them to do is very aggressive, and that is why this report is asking for upfront delegative authorities, so that we can have HCLA, the city attorney, go as fast as possible, because the timeline is so aggressive. So all I'm saying is, if we do need to have extra council actions, just be ready to be very flexible on that 4-month window.
I think by virtue of the culture of this committee, we would be. Yeah, we're not talking about putting up obstacles. We're talking about having a look and very likely waiving them right out of committee to go to council. Otherwise, we sacrifice our ability to even take a glance. And I just don't know that that's such good policy. Yeah. That to me is the healthy tension, in intergovernmental healthy tension. Sharon, would you like to add anything? No? Yeah. No, we're good.
I was listening downstairs.
All right.
So I think that the recommendations that you read into the record, Mr. Chair, struck a balance between speed as well as council oversight of the projects. Now, what I understand is what was presented is already expedited. It's not requiring council approval each and every time. The MOU would go forward, as I understand. Is that correct? With the MOU going forward, I don't know whether the additional 4 months or 6 months, whether that needs to be extended. I think what's important is with regard to the loan documents, sorry, I ran up here.
Yeah, it's okay.
With regard to the loan documents and the covenants that are going to be required, I think that may be important for council to know what kind of projects these are, what kind of requirements will be placed on these projects, as well as location as well.
Okay.
So I think there was a balance.
I would say
Thank you.
if, and I know the recommendation was not to have that MOUs come back, but
Right.
if that was the recommendations, then I would also recommend that the 2-month MOU process be 4 months
Yeah.
instead of 2. So that's great. We can keep that at 2 because we're already really fast. I think the other kind of requirements of the projects, they're all of those eligibility requirements are laid out by statute already, and they're already in the RFP. There's no way that a project will come out of this that doesn't have at least a 55-year covenant. The city attorney is going to be reviewing every loan document and every individual transaction to make sure that it follows all city, state, and federal laws, including, our PLA requirements, our prevailing wage requirements, all building code requirements, land use requirements, things like that. So there are a lot of safeguards already in place that the city has that there's no way that this team or this process would be able to waive.
Okay.
It's a large expenditure.
Mhm.
And so I think it's important as part of the council's due diligence in ensuring Triple H monies are expended in accordance
Right.
with what the voters approved. I think it is important to at least have some council review as opposed to, a very lengthy or very extensive delegated authority to a department. The council may not have an opportunity, based on the recommendations presented to this committee, of actually reviewing any of
Right.
these projects.
I just think it doesn't hurt to have a glance. And like I said, we have a glance, we look it over, we wave it right through to council for a vote, and it gets approved. I just think sacrificing that window would be unwise of us to just squander what I would think is a responsibility. And as you said, one of the concerns I always had with any public funding is that's a lot of money. And there are interests, and there are entities out there that would take advantage of that. And if we don't have a few extra eyes and ears, and we're the eyes and ears, we're elected to this, and we just need to be able to exercise, I think, that responsibility. And I think this would add some insurance to that, and not get in the way at all of the innovative, quick approach.
Right, and I don't think it compromises that, and indeed, the committee, when those reports come through, the committee could waive them.
Right.
They could be scheduled directly to council.
And I would imagine, without knowing this, but I would imagine that will happen quite often. I mean, we scrutinize and read everything in my office, and so if there are any red flags, we would know it. But more eyes and ears are not a bad thing when you're talking about the expenditure of public funds in the tens of millions. Yeah, Mike.
I'm sorry, it's late and maybe I'm just not absorbing information all that well at the moment. You said that there could be up to 22 separate transmittals, but you want to batch them. Is that what I'm understanding?
No.
You're going to do 22 separate transmittals?
We want them to go when they're ready to go.
Okay, so if something does not have any red flags for the council, it can go faster.
I think maybe that was Councilman Rue's recommendation, was that you have a kind of call, an opportunity to ask it to be brought before you if you want to, otherwise that they would perhaps just move forward.
But don't we have that opportunity already?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually you do.
Yeah.
And so I just want to, I'm going to vote no, and I just want to explain my vote. And that's exactly the point. I mean, right now at any time, we can pull any one of these if we wanted to. And I think there's many ways for our council to do oversight or review. And so I just want to say I'm going to vote no, but I want to explain that I do support the exactly as proposed to give delegated authority, because I believe part of the goal of the housing challenge is to speed up the timeline and get these projects done cheaper and quicker. And in my opinion, I know we're all trying to make it go faster here, but in my opinion, adding any additional steps would have a detrimental effect on time and cost of these projects. So just wanted to explain why I'm voting no.
All right. I respect that, but I wouldn't do this if I felt it would add any extra time to any of the approvals or construction starts. Mr. Bonin.
I think I'm still stuck on the same thing. A project nobody has any problem with. Is that going to, under what's proposed right now, going to have the same timeline as something that doesn't? I know what Mr. Rue was saying is that default towards approval unless you hear otherwise. What I'm saying is, if you have this process that Mr. O'Farrell was talking about, is there a way that if the local council office doesn't find it controversial, it just moves faster?
Perhaps the individual council member could introduce a motion to waive it, maybe? The individual project. That's one option that council members can do. I do want to say, like, any project that may not feel right or, from an underwriting perspective is not going to move forward, right? Every single one of these projects are going to be heavily underwritten by HCLA and additional staff that we brought on board that has experience in primary lending positions as well. So there will be no project that will go forward if there are questions about them. But I would say if a project is really ready to go, seems right, has the council member's approval, under this proposal, it would have to come to the committee unless maybe another council member drops a motion to waive it from committee.
Well, that doesn't speed up the process. You still have to vote on that motion.
Yeah. Yes, but at least you don't have to do a transmittal.
That's right.
Which gives the counter argument, but we're going in circles now.
All right. I think one of the look. I mean, it's not the one of the. So we definitely have this extreme time frame, right? But we also, I think, from the mayor's office perspective, we trust that in our housing and community investment department that they are not going to make any decisions that will put the city in a bad position. We trust their expertise in housing development, and we feel comfortable with the upfront delegated authority given to them in coordination with the city attorney's review and the CAO's review, which we haven't mentioned enough. The CAO does have our bond counsel, and no project will be able to move forward unless it has the bond counsel approval that it does satisfy all of the Triple H requirements.
It has to be reviewed as part of the PEP.
And at any time, city council could interject, right?
Yes.
All right, so we have one member who does not agree to my recommendations. Mr. Bonin, where are you?
Mr. Chair, since if there's not going to be a unanimous vote, since there are only 3 members left, it's going to come out as a communication from the chair and a member.
We can do it that way, yeah. We'll do that, thank you. We'll just do communication from the chair, and that'll, so it's kind of as split as it was on the committee, actually, so, right? So thank you for that, and it'll go to council as a recommendation from the chair. And I won't put Mr. Bond in an awkward spot here. All right.
Which way I would have gone.
I know, thank you, I know. Thank you so much, appreciate that. Now,
Thank you.
Oh, there's one more. There's one
I know, but it's 6:30. We have to adjourn. Yeah. So
needed unanimous for it to go forward as a committee report.
So unfortunately, for folks who are here for items 9 and 6, the hour's late. They're about to shut off our lights. It's 6:31. We're going to have to continue them to the next committee. So I apologize. And I'll talk to anyone individually who is here for these 2 items. I have to be somewhere at 7 o'clock myself. What's that? And we have public comment? Okay. So we have some general public comment. We're going to have to do general public comment before we adjourn.
Which items?
9 and 6. And we have Lauren Natoli, Antonia Ramirez, Wayne Spindler for general public comment. 1 minute. Let's start the clock.
Thank you very much. Bravo.
to my honorable President Donald Trump and his HUD Secretary Ben Carson, who will now undertake the Los Angeles chronic massive poverty homeless Holocaust human cesspool. And ladies and gentlemen, what we are requesting for those of us who don't live in Skid Row, we're asking that you provide us with a 24/7, the basic fundamental basic rights, and that is to have a safe, clean, secure, decent, drug, gang-free environment, freedom-friendly with professional staff, showers, 24/7, bathrooms, washer, dryer, cell charging stations, a kitchen with table and chairs. I'm sick and tired of sitting on the ground. A refrigerator, stove, oven, utensils, and a sleeping respite area. And to stop the crimes. Ladies and gentlemen, I keep moving around, but I got a GPS up my ass. So as a person being gang stalked, I am found everywhere. Stop the crimes against women. Please stop the homeless crimes.
Okay, 1 minute for Wayne Spindler, 1 minute. No, is Lauren Natoli or Frank Alton, Reverend Alton, 1 minute?
So again, thank you so much. David Rue does not want to go to federal prison. Give him a hand. That's right. He does not want to go to prison. He's watching our dollars. Learn from what you saw him do today. He realizes Weezer soon will be indicted. Yay! And then current price number 2. But your HHH has been stolen. It's going to be the biggest key tam action in the history of America. Give us back the $1.1 billion you stole, print it up in $5 bills and drop it from a plane all over LA County, and we'll take the money and spend it. Yes, David Rue, I can't believe it. You stood up to these fucking crypto criminals. Good job, and fuck John Lee. We're building that fucking project.
All right, Joan Harper, Guillermo Torres, Charlie Carnow, Carlos Jimenez, Fatima Murrieta, Mariana Huerta, Mario Fuentes, Reverend Ike Udo, Reverend Udo again, Martha Nowicki, Landy Aviles, Tabitha Yelos, James Lauer, Matt Fisher. Any one of these folks that I've called, please step forward and state your name.
Hi, my name is Charlie Carno, and I'm a research analyst for Unite Here Local 11. I'm here to oppose the proposed amendments to 4118 and the criminalization of our unhoused neighbors. Simply, it's the rent that's pushing people, including our members, to the streets, and that is the crime, not being unhoused. For that reason, we spoke out against the extension of the ban on sleeping in cars, and while we're speaking out today, I also want to hearken to Father Ike Udo from Blessed Sacrament Church's comments earlier. We should focus on the fight against displacement. We can do that in our community plans, and we should also continue to build on the progress and the great progress made today in providing supportive housing, not criminalization. As the most recent LASA report found, we're housing more people than ever, but people are being pushed into the streets faster than we can rehouse them. As the report said, what we need is strong state and local policies that preserve affordable housing, prevent evictions, and create new housing. Let's do that, not criminalization. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker, please identify yourself.
Mi nombre es Carlos, trabajo en el restaurante El Delfín.
Is it Carlos Jimenez?
Sí.
Okay, Carlos Jimenez,
Trabajo en el restaurante El Delfín cerca de la parada del metro en Hollywood.
My name is Carlos Jimenez. I'm a cook at Delphine Restaurant by the Hollywood and Vine Metro Station.
Estoy aquí con mis compañeros de trabajo. Estoy aquí con mis compañeros de trabajo y nosotros nos oponemos a la 4118 que criminaliza, sin a la gente sin vivienda.
I'm here today with my coworkers. We oppose 4118 that criminalizes the unhoused.
Yo trabajo a tiempo completo y lo que gano no me ajusta para vivir en Hollywood.
I work full time and I still can't afford to live in Hollywood.
More time, yeah. For the translation, we'll do more time, yeah.
Okay. Creo que debemos tener más compasión y crear más viviendas y no a la criminalización de la gente sin vivienda.
I believe we should have more compassion and should have housing available, not criminalization. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. All right. Tabitha Yelos?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Hi, my name is Tabitha Yelos, and I'm a member of the Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council. I'm also representing the opinions of some people that were here earlier from the Blessed Sacrament Church who had to leave because they couldn't stay so late, but who agree with what I'm about to say. So we have a lot of unhoused people in our community, and they're just that. They're members of our communities, many of whom have lost their apartments to the wave of gentrification and displacement that have washed over Hollywood in the last decade. And instead of 4118 and criminalization, we should stop the displacement and gentrification, and we can do that through the Hollywood Community Plan Update. So I encourage the council to please focus on the plan update, which we have a really great opportunity to use that as a tool to stop a lot of the displacement that we're seeing in our neighborhood, and not criminalize our unhoused neighbors who are just people and who deserve a roof over their head just like everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. And we heard from Guillermo Torres already, but he's still on here. And then, please, your name?
Fatima Murrieta.
Fatima? Uh-huh.
Hi, my name's Fatima. I'm an organizer with Unite Here. I've worked in Hollywood for 7 years. I was a hotel worker at the W. Now I'm a union organizer. And I'm here to tell you that our union strongly opposes 4118. We believe it's not the solution. We strongly oppose a criminalization of the unhoused. And I believe this is not the solution to the economic lack of economic opportunities in our community and of the housing crisis. As an organizer, I talk to our members who live and work in Hollywood and to their neighbors. The need I hear is for affordable housing. It's to stop displacement. Many of neighborhoods have apartment buildings either vacant or being torn down or illegal Airbnbs. And that's causing a lot of displacement. They want to stop that displacement. They don't want criminalization. They want services for their unhoused neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Joan Harper, Mariana Huerta, Mario Fuentes, Reverend Udo, Martha Nowicki, Landy Aviles, James Lauer, any one of those, Matt Fisher, Peggy Lee Kennedy, Jed Perriott, where do we go here? Okay, David Bush, Michael Thorpe, Corey Schmidt, Friedel Cushman, they're going like in loop here. Nancy Ramirez, Julie Williams, Betty Rosen, Dorothy Godes, Lionel Mares, Natalie Christoph is here. I see Natalie. Michelle Autry. Please state your name and begin. That way we'll tear down.
Peggy Lee Kennedy, Venice. The recommended 4118 says no person shall sit, lie, or sleep, blah, 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 within 500 feet of a park. You know, the beach is a park. So that means that you're violating the Coastal Act by saying that you can't sit or sit. And no person. Does that mean everybody can't sit on the beach? Or is the LAPD going to apply this law only to homeless people, which is another violation? I just want you to know 500 feet. This is 500 feet worth of twine, and it's used to measure 500 feet. So are we going to hand this out to the unhoused people? Oh, I can't sit. Oh, I better keep going. Oh, there's a no trespassing sign. Oh, I got to start from here. 500 feet. I mean, that's crazy. So this whole thing is so insane, I want you to rethink it.
Thank you. Please identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Friedel Cushman. I'm a member of the Skid Row Community Improvement Coalition and also a member of the LACPC, that's the Los Angeles Central Providers Collaborative. I'm here on behalf of the LACPC. It's a collaborative of 30 Skid Row-based nonprofit organizations, all the major ones. We meet once a month. Two of our board members, Herb Smith and Andy Bales, have been having ongoing meetings with the Trump administration for the last few weeks. Our LACPC has written a statement outlining solutions local solutions for homelessness and speaking out against raising camps and enforcing federal displacement into camps. It would be a boon if we could send you our statement, and if it's in alignment with your vision, if you could sign on to the statement.
Thank you. Please send it. All right, sir.
Councilman O'Farrell, I'm glad you're still here. I'm sorry Mr. Rue's not here.
Your name again, sir.
My name is David Bush. I'm homeless in Venice, and Councilman Bonin knows me a little bit. And we worked together to bring attended toilets to Venice Beach. We worked together on some positive things. 4118D is to be opposed, Councilman Farrell, because the fact is even if you pass it as you presented it, there's still the plea of not guilty by reason of necessity. You'll be replacing the policing with courtrooms full of people pleading not guilty under the ICORN decision. In addition, the Jones decision already provides for keeping the sidewalks clear. It already provides for 10 feet away from driveways and sidewalks. The other provisions, the alternative, as I mentioned earlier, is we need to start thinking about safe zones. I hope to meet with all of you on this committee and start talking about those with the Venice Family Clinic and the County Health Department real soon.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I know that we have Natalie's here, and I'll call more names in a second. Natalie?
Hello, my name is Natalie Kritz-Christoph. I'm here to urge you to abolish 41.18, which criminalizes our unhoused neighbors. Furthermore, the city attorney's proposed amendments will create apartheid in the city of Los Angeles, playing right into the hands of fascists like Donald Trump. Lastly, 41.18c removes all accountability in a citizen's actions towards the unhoused, essentially creating a stand your ground law. There are terrorist vigilante groups who will escalate their attacks on our unhoused neighbors should this bill become law. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm going to call a bunch of more names. Joan Harper, Mariana Huerta, Mario Fuentes, Reverend Udo, I think we can take him off, he's not here. Martha Nowicki, Landy Avilas, Matt Fisher, Jed Perriott, Michael Thorpe, Corey Schmidt, Nancy Ramirez, Julie Williams, Betty Rosen, Dorothy, and this thing is going crazy. Dorothy Goetz. I want to make sure everyone, that we don't miss anyone. Lionel Morris, Michelle Autry. All right, please identify yourself again. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you, Wayne. He signed, he requested
Did I call your name just now?
Yes, I'm Yvonne Michelle Autry. So
Okay.
that's my legal name. Wayne
All
knows
right.
me as Michelle. That's my legal middle name, Yvonne Michelle Autry. So I'd like to address the fact that I'm advocating for housing for the houseless and the homeless, but also so that I'd like to ensure that these bridge or these housing complexes do not become concentration camps where they're subject to experimentation or other subjugation simply because they were housed in one area, much like the Jewish people were subjugated and experimented on. It seems like a banishment. Again, this 4118, which I'm also speaking against, I'd like that on the record. I'd like to make sure that you know that this homelessness is engineered, of course, in one of the richest cities in the world, which is competitive to other nations' economies. So we want to expose that, and I also would like some funding to create safe refuge for women, protection for women, right? So that those that are unhoused are not incriminated.
Thank you.
And then there's no protection
Thank
once
you.
we are attacked,
Oh, I have to keep going.
subjugated.
Beth Ann Falstead,
Or targeted by
Landy
other individuals.
Aviles, or Martha
Some
Nowicki.
security for women.
I think we heard from
Safety
everyone.
for women.
I don't. General public comment? Yes. Come on up. 1 minute.
Sorry, I just had a lot of problems over the past with that part-time pig, Mitch Englander. Real bad problems, so I feel left out. Now, there's a couple of sites. I think they were assisted living. One's next to a fire station in Panorama City at Woodman and Nordoff. It's, it's got a fence surrounding it. Structure is still there. One's in Studio City next to a DWP generating station, kind of on the other side of the street from Stout Burgers. That's still there. Why can't we somehow rehab them and put some kind of temporary housing in them. Then also, there's those storefronts over at the Marvin Browdy Center. You've got one printing place, and the rest have been empty, golly, for 10, 15 years. You're living in a dream world, think you're going to rent them out. Well, you got the plumbing in there because there were to be restaurants. Have showers out of them. I know I said something about the homeless out there in Van Nuys, and the next time I went to the meeting in April, they had been kicked out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And your name again,
Yes,
sir?
Rodney Brown.
Okay.
I'm here today to put on the table Project New Life. Project New Life is a for-profit, nonprofit venture to identify nuisance and abated properties in all 15 districts. And I believe the challenge is that if we can get each council member to go up on that LADBS, Building and Safeties list, and count how many nuisance and vacant abandoned buildings you have in your district, and let's identify which ones we can rehab and put into these homeless housing and affordable housing. So we are identifying property right now. There's only 29 properties in council in CD 13. I think there's about 38 properties in District 11. So if we can look at what we have in each district, I think it will be a great thing to turn these buildings and rehab each of these buildings into affordable housing. Project New Life.
Thank you. So feel free to send information about the organization to all of us.
I will, and I'll definitely come around to your offices and talk to you about it.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much. All right, that satisfies all comment, all items, and we'll hold the other two to the next committee, as I said. Thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned.